Hey man, lay back here. I want to tell you about my good friend Thad Blevins. He works for Wycott Realtors, ABG Properties in Lexington. He's a full-time licensed realtor that can do real estate deals anywhere in the state of Kentucky. And listen, I don't know how he does it, but this guy can sell a house that he doesn't even own. I've known Thad for 20 years, and I know he'll shoot you straight. He'll get the job done. He's just trying to play some good country music, sell some houses, and treat everybody right. Thanks for having me on here. Have I known you 20 years? Is that right?
It's about 20 years, and that's probably a good place to start, actually. Do you remember when we met?
I remember seeing you play your guitar at the middle school when I was down there doing some kind of business.
No, that was a while after.
So when did we meet?
So I got interested in playing guitar, and Tim and Susie were next door neighbors to Joyce and John. So mine and your buddy Tim managed the radio station.
Oh, yeah.
And he had bands coming in the radio station all the time. And one of the things that they were doing was the Beatnik Ranch Party with Rob McDarlin. So Tim invited me to come just hang out at the Beatnik Ranch Party. I was always hanging out at the radio station, but I came to that. And you were playing. You had that guitar right there. And you came up and introduced yourself, and Tim introduced me, and Tim said, well, this is Thad, and, you know, he's about 11 years old, and he's wanting to learn to play guitar, and you looked at me, and you said, well, this is what you got to look forward to.
It's not going to get any better.
So, and I met Teresa around the same time also through Tim. Do you know, I was talking to her about this last night after she heard me. The Caps camp.
Oh, yeah.
She was serving food. Yeah. Tim said, Thad, this is Chico's wife, Teresa. Teresa, Thad's the only guy I know that's eating more of my food than I have. Stuff like that sticks with me, man. I missed him.
Tim rolled out everything that came out of his voice was a one-liner.
Yeah.
He was really
a
pretty creative guy.
Radio worked for him, man.
Absolutely.
So how long did you work at the radio station?
That I'm going to guess here.
And how did you get that gig?
You know, I can't give you a straight up answer how I got that gig. I wish I'd have thought about this more. I always wanted to do radio, and there would always be a new regime coming to the radio station. I mean, when it was WVKY, it was AM 1270, and it was the same people all the time. But then once it switched over to FM and different people took over, it seems like you would bring in a cast of people and they'd run the station for a couple of years, and then it would change regimes. So I guess when Tim came in, someone said, y'all listen to the radio station now. It's pretty interesting. And most of the times it wasn't too interesting. But, man, Tim was out there. And I really think I may have just marched down there and said, I want to be on radio, maybe.
Really?
That's probably how it went down.
And they said, you already got a nickname already. Just put him on.
Yeah, they let him go. And, you know, they want to know what your skills are. I don't really have any skills. I know a lot about music. I can talk. So I met him and Moo Man.
So you mentioned the boat story, and I remember that boat being parked by Tim's 57 Chevy outside the house for a while.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it over there when I would go up to watch UK games. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I'd been on the station for probably a year. I don't know. You know, it had gotten pretty popular. We were doing radio, and a lot of people called and listened in. And we thought, you know, we need to use our power for good here. So some way through Garrett Roberts, who was the sheriff at the time, they had a program called Coats for Kids. So if you raised a bunch of money, we bought coats to give to kids to wear in the winter. So we thought if we have some sort of fundraiser or fund drive, that what we'll do, and I think Tim came up with most of this stuff, is we're going to put a boat south of Louisa, about 10 miles down about Chapman, and we'll float that boat from Chapman down to Louisa. And this boat had no engine or anything.
So how did you get from did you paddle? How did you get from A to B?
Well, no, that's the way the river runs. So we just went with the current, even though you're going south to north.
But once you're ready to stop, how do you?
You know, we probably had a paddle to try to steer it in, but that was it. So someone gave us the boat. So if you guys want to do this, here's a boat. So I get my buddy John Gostovich, who I was playing with in night train at the time. And so Gostovich is like, well, we got to paint it. You can't just take that crappy boat. So John paints this boat up, and he calls it the Born to Boogie, and it's got a Hank Williams Jr. flag on the back, and it's just super cheese. So we throw that thing in, and we floated. It probably took 3 or 4 hours to float from Chapman down to Louisa. And we had a bunch of sponsors. We raised quite a bit of money for Coach for Kids. It was amazing.
That is amazing.
I think the boat, I don't know if the boat was stolen or someone took the Hank Jr. flag. I know there was something tragic about it, something being stolen. And I don't know where the boat is now. Do you know? You have any idea?
Man, I don't have the first clue.
A friend of yours, Snake Burton, also plays into the story.
Okay.
He comes up when he finds out what we're doing. He goes, look, he said, I know you're going to float this boat. He said, do you know if it'll float or not? I said, no, I have no idea. He said, well, let's take it out to Yatesville at the marina, and let's put it in the water and make sure it'll float first, because he didn't want me to drown.
It's a good plan.
Yeah, so we went out there, and he helped me put the boat in the water, and it would float. So he was involved.
For a few minutes, anyway.
Yeah, and that's all we need. Yeah. You know, one of the greatest parts about that, there's a friend of mine named Cleo. He used to come and watch us play music all the time. He lives at Wallbridge, one of those homes right beside Wallbridge. So as we're floating down under Wallbridge, and I mean, I'm guessing I'm not good, well, maybe 80 feet, 90 feet down to the water, because the train bridge goes over there. As we're coming down through that, there's Cleo out on the train bridge with a rod and reel and 2 beers. So he takes the rod and reel and he lowers down the beer as we're driving under. We grab the cold beers, we give Theo a thumbs up, and we just kept on going. So
that's one of the best Louisa stories, I think.
Yeah, he dropped us down a love package.
No, something about shooting bottle rockets at you?
Yeah, there was kids somewhere between Chapman and Wallbridge, and I guess it would have been Torchlight, an area called Torchlight. As we're going down the river, there's these kids with Roman candles and bottle rockets on the bank, and they just start firing them at us, and they're shooting. And it's just like Apocalypse Now. I mean, I felt I was going up the Mekong Delta. So, I'm kind of ducking in the boat, and it's funny. Well, John Gostovich always carried this green bag with him. And sure enough, he had Roman candles with him, too. Yeah, he started firing back. He really did. So, I mean, the kids were laughing, and we were laughing, and we were shooting at each other. But it was right out of the movie. So I felt like Martin Sheen.
Now, isn't there a story with you and Bill Hammond where one of you shot the other one with a bottle rocket at one point?
I think the way it was, Bill shot me right in the face with a Roman candle. Now, it was at a long distance. I don't think he said, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
Yeah.
But we discovered that if you shot those things, the visual was great. But, yeah, I just remember it coming right at me. And things got weird for a while. We did a lot of things at Bill Hammond's.
Any lasting damage from the bottle rocket incident?
No, it went away fairly easily.
P.T. Allen shot my mom in the head with a BB gun.
On purpose?
I really don't know.
Wow.
She had a scar from it till the day she died.
Man. P.T. was a football coach when I was in middle school.
I never know he's a football coach.
I played for Don Hillman's team, and we were playing against P.T.'s team. And it was in 8th grade. So I ran a play and got knocked down, and I broke my arm. And my arm was really broken horribly. It was like this arm was going the other direction. And I'm laying there in the field. And PT comes up to me and says, "Oh, Cheek, you're all right. Get up, buddy." I was like, "No, Coach, I'm not all right. My arm's going this way now." But he helped me get over it. And the tragedy of that whole story is my football number was number 2, and I loved my jersey. And after I'd broken my arm and went to the hospital, someone took my jersey, and I never did get it back. You
never played football again after that?
No, that was it. Mom said, you probably don't need to do that.
What position did you play?
I was a running back and a linebacker.
You're that mean?
No, I wasn't very good. I think I was a thinking man's football player.
Yeah.
And there's not
it's
much.
It's not great if you're a linebacker. It's all about timing, right?
It is. And I think Don, because I was playing for Don, and I love Don Hillman, and he wanted me to be more of a linebacker mentality, but I just didn't have it. Maybe he had my arm broken.
Did you have your hair under a helmet back then?
What little I had. You couldn't have long hair in school then.
You had the fro thing, didn't you?
Well, I mean, my hair was curly on its own.
Huh.
So, yeah, I had as much as you could have then.
So, over the years, you and I have talked anecdotally about your parents.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up and your musical influences in the house.
Okay, so my dad is a great bluegrass banjo player. He's a really, really good guitar player. He was an excellent fiddle player. He could play upright bass. He could play pretty much anything, any stringed instrument that he had access to. And some people just have a touch on an instrument, and Dad had that. Everything he played was better than how I could play it. He was just really that good. And what really amazed me most about him was his fiddle playing. Because he would play a square dance contest. He moved to Columbus when he was young, and hillbillies in Columbus all gathered in the South End there. And he would fiddle at square dance contest, and then it just goes on and on forever. And he played with a Cajun feel, and I don't know where that came from because my dad's never been to Louisiana. I was thinking about this the other day. There was a guy on the Opry back then, something Newman. I can't think of his name, but he was a sort of a Cajun fiddle player, and I wonder if Dad didn't hear him on the Opry, and that kind of influenced the way he played. But he could play banjo like Ralph Stanley and fiddle like a Cajun.
This is pretty dark. But it's the chicory.
Good. So you didn't blend this?
I didn't do anything.
Okay.
It came out of that can right there.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
You dig it?
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's good work.
Awesome. I make coffee pretty stout anyway.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So Dad, excellent musician like that. Mom, Mom and Dad would always go out and play music together, and Mom just, I think, needed to keep an eye on Dad. So Mom had a snare drum that she would play brushes on. So she was a bluegrass drummer. But really, that was just her way to make sure she was with Dad.
She was a bluegrass drummer.
Yeah.
That's not a joke.
No, she was self-proclaimed. I'm a bluegrass drummer. And she would just go and just play.
She might have been the first one.
There were probably more. But she would just play brushes and just keep it a little beat.
Huh.
So it was interesting.
So they had a bluegrass group or just two of them?
Yeah, it was weird. They had a band for a while. It was called the Bluegrass Drifters. And I don't know who was really in it, but there was just this core of musicians who would meet every weekend, either at my house or their house or someone else's house. Same bunch of guys, probably 5 or 6 different dudes, and they would play for a long time. They would crank up about 8 o'clock at night and go to 1 and 2 in the morning.
I miss stuff like that being a thing.
Yeah, it was really cool. And looking back, I didn't know how cool it was because I remember going with
unique to where we're from.
Yeah. I would go with them, and I would play guitar up to about 11 o'clock, and I'm just starting to get tired. And, they're cranked up at this point. So I just sneak off somewhere and go to sleep, and they just keep going.
Huh. That's awesome. I'm jealous that you grew up that way.
Well, it was cool.
So your dad owned or managed the bar at the time in Fort Gay?
He didn't own it. It was owned by a guy named Willie Crabtree, but he had hired Dad to run it. So probably about 68. I know it was 68 that Dad was running the bar. So I would have been 4 or 5 years old. I stayed back home because the bar was in Fort Gay, West Virginia. I'm back home on Twin Branch because my grandma lived there too. So I'm staying mostly with my grandma. Every now and then I go stay with Mom and Dad at the bar because they had an apartment upstairs. He runs that for a while. He has a lot of bluegrass music on the weekends there. So we're going to go into the Ralph story.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Carter Stanley had died, which fortunately I actually got to see the Stanley brothers.
Wow. Probably
Probably not long before Carter died at all. They played in Louisa at the Garden Theater. I don't really remember it. I was too young to I just remember seeing a stage with some guys on it. I didn't know anything about it. So after Carter dies, Ralph keeps it going. It's Ralph Stanley and the Quinch Mountain Boys. And, they're playing anywhere. So Dad had them play that bar there a bunch of times. They played every school. It seems like they played Flat Gap School all the time. But Dad had them coming to the bar. And so as a warm-up band, these 2 kids had been coming over wanting to play music at the bar, and they were actually too young to get in. And it was Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley. And they had just sort of teamed up and were playing some music together. Keith was from Sandy Hook. Of course, Ricky's from out Cordell. So Dad lets them come in to open up for the Stanley brothers. And the way I understand the story, I wasn't there. I guess the Stanley brothers are late getting there. Well, not the Stanley brothers, but Ralph is late getting there. And so they played kind of an extra long set. And, they can just slay the Stanley brothers stuff. That's what they did.
Yeah.
So Ralph rolls in and hears them and is like, hey, you guys are pretty good. And so I guess he lures them into the band, and they sort of met right there in Fort Gay at Dad's bar.
I had always heard the story that they met in Fort Gay.
Yeah.
And I don't think I knew growing up that your dad was managing it at the time. But you're talking about it in a documentary, and I thought, do those dots connect?
Yeah, and I never really sat down and put it all together, but then something happened and it clicked. And I guess there's a book out right now that someone's written about Ralph. Maybe it's been out a few years. But it documented, it says, in Fort Gay is where they heard them. And you kind of put it all together and said, well, that was at Dad's bar. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Which I can't find them now. Mom had tons of photos from that show. And, Keith's got these big old horn rim glasses on. Ricky's just real thin, and they just look like 2 goober kids. But they were really good even then.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, in country music, that's a famous story, like in the canon of country music stories.
Yeah, I guess it should be.
It should be.
Yeah.
And your dad was managing the bar.
Yeah, my dad did that. Good job, Dad.
That's a claim to fame, man. I don't know. Butterfly flaps its wings in China.
I don't know what that means. I've never read that parable.
Oh yeah?
No, what is
That's how you get hurricanes in the United States.
Good. I'm glad to know that.
So your dad played bluegrass, played fiddle, played banjo, had a good touch. I'm envious of people that play those bowed fretless instruments that way, because I think, especially if you do that when you're young, you get better ears that way than playing anything else you could play.
I think so, because Rachel plays fiddle.
She plays fiddle, and her ears are phenomenal.
That's amazing. It never happened for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't pull up the pitch. And Dad was on every time.
Yeah. You're a pretty good steel player, though.
What?
I said you're a pretty good steel player.
You never heard me play steel?
I've heard you play steel.
I'm not very good.
You're self-deprecating is what you are.
Well, I'm just factual. And if it's one of those things that you got to play all the time.
Yeah.
If I sat down and played steel every day, I could probably sit in the background and be very low and not bother anybody. But then when you're around really good steel players, you go,
no, I feel that way about music in general when I'm around good players.
Yeah, and that's just natural, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. But seems to me like you're pretty good with the resonator too. I remember seeing you and Teresa down at the pool, and you just played the resonator the whole time.
Yeah, not so bad. Anything where you got a bar and it's slicky and you can be off pitch very easy is difficult.
We just vibrato.
Yeah, I know. You just do that Mike Campbell. Do it really wide. My slide playing comes from Rick Richards of the Georgia Satellites, because he's just real raw, and there's real precise slide playing like Derek Trucks does.
Yeah.
And then there's what Rick Richards does.
Yeah.
And that's where I aim.
It's just
I want to be like
real
that.
Emotional, just visceral.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to put it.
That's the only kind of slide I'll ever be able to play.
Yeah. Well, it's Johnny Winter. That's the way Johnny Winter plays. So.
Yeah. So you grew up playing bluegrass with your dad, hearing that. When did you start getting into rock and roll?
Well, I got to say that Dad really liked Johnny Cash too.
Yeah.
And so we had these Johnny Cash records with Luther Perkins just playing these. He played very simple. It's almost like he was a bass player, and he just played a lot of those big string notes. So I always had that in my background too. I loved electric guitar the way Luther played, but that was the extent of what I was into. And I moved to, they decided they would build Yatesville Lake, so we had to leave that area, and I moved to High Bottom. And my neighbor across the street was a guy named Jeff Rogers, who's still just one of my best friends in the world.
I'm not going to just let that slip by.
Okay.
Them building Yatesville Lake meant you were displaced.
Yeah, we had to move.
I'm going to start the sandwich maker.
All right, please do. I wonder how many amps that pulls.
I don't know.
Oh, you're running through a Furman, though, so it's good. Keep the voltage constant on it. That's great.
Yeah, when that light turns green, let me know. I can't see it.
Which one?
There's
on the cooker?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
All right, so your family was displaced because Kentucky decided to build Yatesville Lake where your house was.
Well, it's the federal government decided to do it.
Federal government.
Yeah,
okay.
They came around probably in the early 70s.
Was that eminent domain? They just push you out, or they pay to build you a new house?
Yeah, well, all of those are true. I mean, they came in the early 70s and said, we're going to do this. And when Carter got elected, Carter said, this is a dumb idea. We're not going to build Yatesville Lake. So they cut the funding. But then I guess when Reagan got elected, is that right? No, I'm telling the story wrong. Maybe Carter was one of the presidents okayed the money. It had to have been Carter.
Sounds like Carter.
Because that's when we left. It was in the early mid-70s. So, yeah, they said, well, you're going to have to go. And lots of people who lived at Twin Branch said, well, we don't want to go. And I said, well, you kind of don't have a choice. We'll put the money in a bank account in your name, and we'll still knock your house down. So they bought our place, and they gave us a moving allowance, and we went from there to High Bottom.
So you moved to High Bottom, and that's when the Led Zeppelin thing started creeping in.
Yeah, that's when, like I said, my friend Jeff Rogers, who was from Columbus, who was really into rock and roll, AC/DC and Zeppelin and lots of things like that, and he introduced me to that. I was like, wow, this is another way to think about things.
Do you remember the first time you heard Led Zeppelin?
Actually, I do. I do remember the first time.
Tell that story.
Well, and two, I'm sure I heard Zeppelin on radio or whatever, but the first time I ever bought a Zeppelin album where I could really sit it and listen to it, I go over to, there was a guy in Fort Gay named Charlie Daughtery. Are you familiar with him at all? He ran just a pawn shop, a thrift shop. He sold albums. He sold everything. He had a wall full of albums. So I go over there, And I'm going through stuff, and I see Led Zeppelin. I was like, well, this is a band I've heard of. This is probably something I need to hear. And it was Led Zeppelin 2. And it's in the wrong cover even. But I bought it. Probably gave $1 for it. I go home and I listen to Led Zeppelin 2, and I was like, oh, my God. How do you do this? It was the most awesome thing I'd ever heard. Along about that same time period, a friend of mine, Brad Maynard, had loaned me an 8-track tape of Hendrix's first album. And it was just a mind blower. And really, if you go back and listen to the first Hendrix record, keep in mind, I really like Luther Perkins and that kind of sound. Hendrix is not that far removed from that. He's playing a lot of single note stuff. He's playing on big strings a lot. He's very melodic. I was like, man, this makes a lot of sense, but where did it come from? But in the same breath, Hendrix goes off on these crazy tears too. But it was easy to transition from Johnny Cash to Hendrix for me.
I never knew you were a Hendrix guy. I thought you didn't like Strat players because they all play like Hendrix.
You know, at that point when I wanted a Strat because Joe Perry had a Strat, so I wanted a Strat.
So you were an Aerosmith fan before you were a Zeppelin fan?
No, I wouldn't say that. I got the Zeppelin thing, and I was just blown away by it. Like, this is the holy grail of all rock music, and no one could ever touch it. Musically, they were all such good musicians. And like I said, Hendrix just was doing stuff that I didn't think anyone could even do on guitar. But when I started to really get into songs, and here's how this happened. I'm sure you've seen the ads for Columbia House, where if you send in 11 cents, you get 15 CDs.
Oh, no, listen, my brother had basically a business with Columbia House.
Yeah.
He'd sign up 100 of his friends. I mean, he had 1,000 records when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He signed up for every club coming and going, and it was awesome. Yeah,
well,
that's why I know all the music I do is that stuff.
Well, that's what I did. And, you don't have any Spotify. There's no internet. There's nothing. No. So I thought, well, Aerosmith's cool. I've heard them on the radio. So I bought 3 Aerosmith albums. I got Get Your Wings, Toys and Attic, and Rocks. And I also bought a bunch of Ted Nugent records because I'd heard Cat Scratch Fever on the radio. So I bought a bunch of Nugent. And I didn't really know what any of those sounded like. And they all come in. I was like, oh, Aerosmith's for me. I mean, there's something spoke to me about them. Their songwriting, their guitar playing. So I wanted to be Joe Perry. I would stand in front of the mirror and try to figure out how to stand like Joe Perry.
Did you figure it out?
No, not really. But I tried. I even tried to hold my jaw like Joe Perry. When I had pictures made, I would try to get this vein to flex up like Joe Perry. I'm not even lying. I loved it.
That's awesome, man.
And then you find out when you get older, a lot of the good guitar parts are Brad Whitford, but I didn't know. I thought Joe Perry played everything.
I mean, he's a good player. He doesn't have the mind that Brad does.
No, you're right.
He's just all feel and touch.
Yeah, and sometimes that's solid gold.
Yeah, right.
So when you get live bootleg and you can tell Brad's on this side and Joe's on this side, you go, oh, that was Brad playing that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, love Aerosmith.
And you were into Skynyrd then, too, at all?
Yeah. Absolutely. When you'd sent me a message the other day saying that you thought that people kind of blew past Skynyrd because they were so popular.
Well, there's this thing about Skynyrd where it's like, Skynyrd's like church, man. Like, people in the South, it's like, it's cliche. It's like, there's a Kid Rock thing, and it's on the Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial. And it's like, there's always a drunk guy at the concert, the old saw, the pre-bird.
Yeah.
But like, if you seriously go back and dig into those records at like a good set of headphones and listen to them close, they're one of the most incredibly just musical bands.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. And the way Ed King played, the way he phrased stuff, listen to the record, slow him down, and listen to the way he would do those bends. It's not what you think when you listen to it casually.
No, you're right.
You can know his parts, but you can't play them like that.
Yeah. I can't. I don't even know them. But I certainly couldn't play them. But you're right. And it's not Lynyrd Skynyrd's fault that they got so popular and became so cliche. That's not their fault.
No.
They're great. I put Skynyrd up against anybody.
Yeah.
If you watch the Freebird movie, have you ever seen it?
I didn't know there was a Freebird movie.
Oh, go back. This came out probably 10 years ago. It's just a nice little documentary. Shows them playing in England a lot. And you watch that and you go, my gosh, they're great.
Well, I loved Ed's playing because Ed didn't come from a rock background. He came from a blues background. So if you listen to like solo in Sweet Home Alabama, he's not doing that E minor pentatonic thing like you'd expect.
Like what I do.
Or what I would do, or what 90% of guitar players would do.
You're right.
He's highlighting the chord tones, and he's doing that Mixolydian thing, and it's real major and bright and happy sounding. But it's real bluesy and all kinds of touch, and nobody's played like that quite since. I'm not much for the current iteration of Skynyrd, really.
I saw it, and it was like going to a pro wrestling match.
Yeah.
It really was.
It is.
There was a lot of flashing and bright things, and I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, I watched a few years ago. Rosington and Gaines did a lesson video for Guitar World on how to play Sweet Home Alabama, and they did every section of the song. They don't play it right. They don't play it like a record.
I probably can't.
I probably can't. That's right.
And Ed King just passed away here not too long ago.
I know. It's been on my mind.
Yeah, but he was brilliant. I got to tell you though, I think maybe some of my favorite Skynyrd is the "Give Me Back My Bullet" records, where it's just two of them. It's just Collins and Rosington.
Well, that's that Gibson.
Yeah.
That's that fat sound that you
and they're
like.
just really stripped down, and it's really good.
That stuff's great too.
They do the old the old gray whistle test during that period, and it's just those two.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean all those records, those early records, start to finish, are like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go listen to Skynyrd.
Yeah.
And mean it.
Yeah, don't fool around. Don't listen to the hits. You'll find a song called "Coming Home" and listen to it and try not to cry.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Beautiful.
I think, I mean, it's overplayed, but it's not as cliche as the others. But Curtis Lowe's a great song.
It really is.
Great song.
We played it in Night Train, and Bob sang.
Oh, that's right.
Bob sang the crap.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was one of our better songs.
So, Hendrix, Skynyrd, Nugent, Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And were you, like, when you were hearing this stuff, did you try to learn those records?
Yeah, especially the Aerosmith stuff, because it was real riff heavy and not super hard. And I remember learning, there's one, what's called, it's on Rocks. Go with me. Help me with some rock songs. You don't know either, do you?
Rocks is all you.
All right, so there's a song on there that I can play. I'll learn to play it, and, it's just this bar chord riff stuff. And I remember playing it over and over and over in my bedroom. And I remember Dad coming in one time and going, you listen to a lot of stuff that I don't really care for. He said, that's pretty good. He said, I kind of like that. And it was a little Brad Woodford's guitar part on this song, and I can't think of the name of it, Saving My Life. But I thought, well, that's cool, Dad. But Dad would always say, because I was, trying to play Hendrix, whatever. He said, you really need to play simple. He said, when you're trying to play all this really far, he would call it far out stuff. He said, no one can understand that. So you should always play simple.
Man, I dig the far out stuff. And when I first started playing music, I was like, well, look up in the dictionary who are the best guitar players. Hendrix, Page. Well, I'm going to learn that stuff before I learn G, C, and D, right?
Yeah.
And I regret taking that approach. I mean, I still love that music because of how much I listened to it then. But I feel like I've been playing guitar for 20 years. And now I'm circling back, and I'm trying to learn the stuff that I tried to learn whenever I first picked it up. But I'm trying to dig deeper and really try to get it, like the Skynyrd stuff. The way that I didn't and couldn't because I wasn't old enough, hadn't lived yet, didn't know how to listen to a record.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I do. And a lot of the things that you just mentioned, you're talking about Hendrix and Page, and I really like Michael Schenker when he's in UFO.
Oh, yeah.
And I almost think that you almost have to be a guitar player to really get off on that stuff, because technically what they're doing. You're going, man, that's brilliant. So I wonder how Joe Smith, who doesn't play guitar, how does Michael Schenker affect him? Do they get the same thing out of it?
Joe, who doesn't play guitar, doesn't listen to UFO. He listens to Aerosmith. Well,
there you go. Took care of that question. And he probably owns everything from Pump on.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't know. It's always hard for me to think of how guitar-oriented rock affects non-guitar players and why they like certain parts of it and why they don't. Hey, it doesn't make sense to me.
You can like stuff on a surface level just for the way it makes you feel.
I guess that's it, isn't it?
Right. And then you get, as a guitar player, you can listen deep and really get into it. But even us are hooked because of how it makes us feel to begin with, same as anybody else.
That's true. But when I see these discussions start up and said, well, who's the better band, Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin? And I'm just going, all right, this is not even a valid argument.
No.
Led Zeppelin is head and shoulders over Pink Floyd, even though I really like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can't compare those two things. It's like comparing a badminton player to a weightlifter. That doesn't work.
I agree. They're, similar era, but apples and oranges.
Yeah.
In the documentary, which, holy cow, it's got like 1.5 thousand views the first week he uploaded it after everybody's already seen it at various venues.
Because everybody loves Zach Curry. That's why.
I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
But he's pretty lovable.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
No joke. But you were talking about as laid back, kind of pushing that 70s sound. There are elements of the 70s I can take or leave, but what I will say about the 70s is that was the best era for rock songwriting. From arrangement standpoint, from the chords that those guys are playing, people haven't played like that before or since.
I agree. I had this factoid in my head, and now I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm still going to throw it out there. In 1976, within a 2-week period, Farewell to Kings came out, Rocks came out, and I think the first AC/DC, no, High Voltage.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks.
Yeah. Pretty good couple of weeks at the record store.
And if you want to bounce up, a year on either side of that, look at everything that came out. It's just amazing for guitar, rock stuff. There you go. Zeppelin's cranking it out. Blue Oyster Cult's putting it out. Everybody. Rush is peaking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think people who were kids then were beneficiaries of the fact, and now we suffer from the fact that when a record came out, if there was a band that you liked, you would go to the record store. You couldn't wait till release day. You went to the record store, you bought the album, you came home, put on the record player, you invited your buddies over. It was like going to Blockbuster and renting a movie.
Yeah.
You rented the record, and it was an event.
Oh, absolutely.
And so bands knew that when they were writing records. So they cared how they were written, what they sounded like, what the production values were, right? People listen different, so they made records different.
Song order was really important.
Song order was important. There was a lot of concept records in the 70s. And I think now we suffer from the fact that music is... bands still make albums just because it's the most logical way to... from an artistic standpoint, not necessarily from a commercial standpoint. But I think what we suffer from now is like, you've got your $150 AirPods that sound like garbage that you got in your ears that you're listening to your playlist while you cut the grass. It's soundtrack. Music now is background noise. It's not an event. People don't go buy records and sit and listen to them. I know I sound like you kids get off my lawn, but the point is, because of that, people don't care what stuff sounds like the way that they used to.
Well, when you're in the studio too, and if you've got a good engineer and a good, especially when you do your mastering and mixing, what are you mixing for? Are you still mixing for a guy with 6x9 Cracos in a Dodge?
Right. No.
Are you mixing for earbuds?
You're mixing for earbuds.
Or someone just listening on the phone, and you got to be cognizant of that.
Right. I don't know that it's anybody's fault in the actual music industry. It's just, and you can't blame producers and engineers from approaching things that way.
Absolutely, because those people are who buy it, and that's
because if you put, that's why all that 70s stuff has been remastered. Because they want to make it listenable for people now. Yeah. The way people listen to music now. Whenever you put on some of those early records and try to listen to them that way, they don't sound good. Because you're not listening to them how they're supposed to be listened to.
Yeah, you're right.
I love hanging out up here and just playing all that old stuff for this receiver.
Oh, yeah, because that's its wheelhouse.
Yeah, I've got my shag carpet and my lights that match the receiver, and I'm just time traveling up here.
You're doing your part. That's great.
So... you feel like out of those bands, Zeppelin probably shaped you the most as a player? Probably
so.
I hear that a lot.
Especially when I got a little bit of skill.
Yeah.
Because, at first I couldn't really play that way, but yeah. When I say I think like Page a lot, that sounds very arrogant. But just the way that Page approaches some things, I do that too. And it's just from listening to him so much. Things that are just my stock licks are a lot of Jimmy Page things. And me and 4 billion other guitar players say that.
Well, to me, it doesn't sound arrogant. Page was a monster guitar player, but he was pretty sloppy.
And so am I, too. I'm a sloppy player.
But if you're listening to it for that, you're missing the point.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, it's easy to come down. Oh, Page, blah, 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 blah. I remember, are you familiar with a guy named Dave Angstrom?
No.
Dave Angstrom was a brilliant Lexington guitar player. And I'm going to get late 80s early. I had a band called Super Fuzz.
Oh, Super Fuzz. Yeah. I remember those guys.
And so Angstrom, he was in a band called Black Cat Bone before that.
Okay.
And he knew every Page lick. And I remember getting those records and going, man, so this is how you do it. And this is how you play some Jimmy Page licks. And he was playing them honestly, too. I mean, you could tell that was just ingrained in that's the way he played. And hearing Angstrom a lot helped me cop some of those Page licks. So I'm getting them almost secondhand through him.
That's kind of cool, though, because then it makes it a little bit more yours.
Yeah, in a way.
Right.
This is the Dave Angstrom version of a Jimmy Page lick. Now I'm doing it.
That's like Dave Grissom talking about that Birds record, where he would listen to those solos that were played with the B-bender.
Yeah.
He didn't know what a B-bender was and never heard of
So
one.
he's doing it with these.
So he's doing it with his hands, and that's how he developed the style of being the kind of player he is. Is listening to those records, trying to do stuff without the tools, right?
Because he's really good at having an open string and droning that and bending something else.
He's a master.
Yeah, really.
And that's where that comes from. And you don't have that now because you can look up YouTube and watch the Birds.
Yeah, and go, well, this is how you do it.
Right.
Ignorance was bliss.
It had its benefits.
Yeah.
But you don't like the Eagles.
I do not like
the most 70s band of any 70s band.
Are they?
I'm not saying. When I think of the 70s, I mean, that whole literary rock thing, that's what everybody thinks of, which is why you don't like them, right?
That's not why I don't like them.
Because they stole Graham Parsons' thunder?
Yeah, that's what I think.
No, tell me that story.
Well, it is. From listening to Jimmy Page, and Page walks on water for me. So somewhere I read that he goes, there's a guy named Clarence White, and I really like what Clarence White does. So I thought, no, I need to go find out about Clarence White. So I get this Birds record, and I hear this stuff, and if you really listen to the live Birds record, Untitled is the name of it, that's where Page got a bunch of his stuff, is he's playing Clarence White wigs. And I don't mean just the beat bending. Clarence is a bluegrass player, and just the way he'll lead into certain things is bluegrass stuff. But Page took that and ran it through a Marshall and Les Paul. So it's like, oh my God, well, this makes a lot of sense. Start listening to the Birds, fall in love with them, the whole country rock thing. And, it sort of brought me back home because I'd been a Johnny Cash guy and then went off on my Zeppelin and Hendrix experience. And then all of a sudden you get to come back home and go, well, country music is cool and it's okay.
You heard it different, though.
What do you mean? Heard that music differently?
Yeah,
absolutely.
When you came back to it.
Absolutely. So, through the Birds, you find out about Graham, and then you start digging all through all the Graham records, and you go, when Graham did this, really, as far as I'm concerned, at least in my limited knowledge, no one else was doing that. Because Graham had a rock and roll soul, but he's singing really hardcore country. And he's taking a lot of drugs, and he's psychedelic, and he's wearing all these spacey suits, but he's singing really hardcore country. And he starts that genre, in my opinion. Now, there'll be people argue with me, and that's fine. I could be wrong. But in my heart, it's Graham. And so all of a sudden the Eagles get really famous for doing that sort of stuff without the depth that Graham had, in my opinion. I mean, the Eagles are writing some Take It Easy. There was one song that really drove me crazy with the Eagles, Peaceful Easy Feeling.
Yeah. That's easy listening music.
I just thought that was the worst song ever. And I just remember being at a party one time, and this guy is so involved in listening to and singing along with Peaceful Easy Feeling. I thought, this is ridiculous. And I just think that Graham and everyone got shorted out on that deal.
But what about, you got Life in the Fast Lane, Hotel California.
Well, Joe Walsh is in that.
Yeah.
I'm a little more forgiving with Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Victim of Love.
Heartache Tonight.
That's a good pop song.
It is a good pop song.
Yeah. And they were fine, and now I've got this thing where I say I hate the Eagles so much, so I have to hate them.
Yeah.
They wrote some fine pop songs, but I don't own an Eagles record.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I do own an Eagles record. I've got their greatest hits.
You and everybody else.
Yeah. You have to have that. They give it to you.
I agree about Joe Walsh.
It went somewhere else. They got a little more credible with me with Joe Walsh.
So I remember when we were on the bus to New Orleans, and I had an iPod full of songs. I was real proud of my music collection. I got a couple stories about the music collection, actually. So my brother moved to California in 2003, and he had this vast CD collection, and I would always go raid his CD folders when he was gone to college or wherever he was. And then one day we were driving up Five Forks Hill to church, and my mom was always just observing whatever was outside the car on the side of the road. I mean, we'd be driving through anywhere USA, and she'd say, "Look, Thad, Cracker Barrel." I mean, she liked to read the road signs, and everything was novelty to her. She had that like young, innocent kind of perspective on everything. But we were on our way to church. We were already late, and she saw this stuff sitting on the side of the road. She said, "Stuart, stop the car." And I'm like, "Oh, we're late. Let's go." And she's like, "Stop the car. I mean it. What is that?" I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." So we pull over on the side of the road, and there's probably there's big album folders. There's probably 300 CDs in there, and it's all like Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, some band doing AC/DC covers that was doing them better than AC/DC did with Brian Johnson. And I never figured out who that band was. And then there was Joe Satriani Records, Steve Vai Records, Rush Records. There's a lot of bands I ended up getting into and wearing the records out because Mom caused us to stop on the side of the road, and we picked up those CDs. So if you're in Louisa and you're listening and you were having an argument with your girlfriend and your CDs went out the window, thank you, because you changed my life.
That's super cool.
So before Dave moved to California, Mom had the computer lab at the elementary school. She was the computer lab teacher. And all 30 of those computers had CD burners in them. So we took both of our entire collections before we went to California. And we spent like a good 72 straight hours just burning hundreds and hundreds of CDs for each other. So he would have what I had when he left, and I would have what he had when he left. And I've still got all that stuff.
That's cool.
So, I mean, I guess that's against the law, but I don't know. It feels like nothing compared to the way the world is now.
No, it's mild.
Yeah. But I don't know. That was fun to look back on. So anyway, I handed you the iPod with all my music on it from what I could fit of those records on the bus going to New Orleans. And you went through it and you're like, man, you got some absolute garbage on here. And you're like, you got some good stuff too. And I was like, well, thanks. But it's always been a little bit of a curiosity to me. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it. What's the common thread for you that goes through different songs and different bands and different genres that makes you like it or not?
I don't know.
I know it's a hard question, but have you ever thought about it?
I have thought about it, and it really doesn't matter if it's a bluegrass song or a Johnny Cash song or a Buck Owens song or an Aerosmith song or whatever, or a Cake song. It's hard to say. Actually, you familiar with Webb Wilder?
No.
Webb Wilder put out a bunch of records mainly in the late 80s, early 90s. So I got to go see Webb Wilder, and he had Donny playing guitar, and I stayed around after the show, and Donny actually came out and talked to me. So Donny's playing through a couple of high watts, and he's just a really good guitar. You can tell he's a Page guy too, and just a great player. And I was just honored to talk to him. I was just kind of dumbfounded, going, oh, well, you're Donny Roberts, one of those. And he was so sweet, and he still didn't talk to me. So fast forward to now. And Donny he's not playing guitar now. He moved to Arizona, and now I think he's up around Oregon. And I asked to be his friend on Facebook and get to talking to him, and we become pretty good buddies. And I'm just honored to know him. So he watches a few videos I put out, and he was complimenting me. He said, some of the things you do really move my monkey bone. And I know exactly what he means. You just hear a riff or something that just, you go, oh, man. And that's what it is. And I can't describe it any better than that. And it doesn't matter what genre it is. There are just some things and some chord progressions or just some sounds that just grab you. And I wish I could give it a better description. I think Donny's as close as you can get.
To me, there's a rawness and a hardness and almost a heaviness to stuff that you like, even if it's bluegrass.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I don't seem to go for the softer things.
Yeah, like Peaceful, Easy Feeling.
No, I do not go. I will tell you, though, I think maybe one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and I can just listen to it and cry. If no one's around, I'll probably cry every time I listen to it, is If I Were a Carpenter, the Johnny Cash version.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if I'm by myself listening to that, I'm crying.
It's still heavy when Johnny sings it, though.
It is. You're right.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is. But it really moves me. It's so pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just, I don't know. What's that mean? We're in trouble.
Where were we?
We're talking about Monkey Bones. And Johnny Cash making us cry.
Yeah. And I said, you still like Johnny Cash because even when it's pretty, it's still heavy.
Yeah, it is.
That record he made with Rick Rubin. Golly. Is one of the heaviest things I've ever heard in my life.
The guy who engineered that, and the way I understand the story, had a whole lot to do with that record, is a guy named David Ferguson.
Yeah, he did the Tyler records.
Well, he just did my
He did yours.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so we're sitting there, and, me and Dave don't always see eye to eye on some things. And the whole time I'm saying, well, Dave, I don't think I really want to do this part. In the back of my head, I'm going, he did this Johnny Cash record. Don't talk to Dave Ferguson like that.
Let's just try it, Dave.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, I don't think he really gets the accolades he needs to for that cash comeback stuff. But the way I understand it, Dave Ferguson made that stuff happen. Rick Rubin's name's on it, but I think Dave was the guy on it.
Rick has made some great records.
Oh, and I'm not taking away from him.
He's made some iffy records too.
He's not afraid to take a chance, evidently.
No. I have you heard the story about his whole production thing, how he sits on the couch and just gets up and lets the band know if they do something cool?
No.
It's just kind of like he just kind of fades into the background and lets people jam and tries to kind of draw out whatever it is about them that he thinks is quality. And he kind of did that with Johnny Cash too. I mean, do you know the story about them getting together before they made that record?
No.
So my understanding, Johnny wanted to make another, serious record, and at the age he was, and so Rick took it as his mission to kind of help Johnny find his way again.
Yeah.
So they just sat in the living room and Johnny just played and sang for hours and hours, and they tried to go back through Johnny's old stuff and try to kind of reconnect with his identity, because I guess Rick and Johnny both felt like he'd kind of lost his way, and to just try to find the right headspace to make that record, and they did.
Oh, absolutely.
They did. And
if you look at Johnny's career, and I don't know if Columbia dropped him or not, but he was doing some horrible material.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, it was a shame. But yeah, Rick brought him back and said, "This is Johnny Cash."
Yeah.
Mr. Cash.
Thank God for Rick Rubin.
Yeah, no kidding. That needed to happen.
Yeah.
So Johnny goes out his last years with the respect he deserved.
And then Dave made it sound like it was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave did a fine job with it.
Well, let's talk about your record. So, first question is, how far is it from Mossy Jaw to Hickman Holler?
You can't even get there. You have to go somewhere else and then go. Okay. From Mossy Jaw. It's quite a distance. I made my first little record in Wattsburg with Kenny Miles and Hayden Miles, and they got a little studio called Fat Baby Studio, which is brilliant. And we just go up there. I go up with a song idea. We'd beat around on it. Kenny would turn it into something good. We get about 2 takes. Well, this sounds good. Let's move on. So I put out the first little laid-back record, and it's cool. There's some cool moments on it.
I love that record. I listen to it all the time. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm glad somebody is. So then, be what it may, Hickman Holler decides that they want me to do a record in Nashville. So they roll out the A-listers, and I go down and record at the Butcher Shop with Dave Ferguson. And it's a whole different ball game. And then to make things really interesting, 6 days before we start, I cut my thumb, like really bad. It was on a Wednesday, and I'm peeling an apple, and I slice it. I can't hold a pick. And it's 6 days before I'm going to record. So I'm like, well, what do I do here? I've got this studio lined up. I got musicians coming in. Would it be a courtesy just to say, look, I've cut my thumb. I can't do this. Let's put it off. But then I look and go, school's getting ready to start. Everything's on the table. So I start eating everything I can that's got vitamin E in it. This is no joke. I eat so many kiwi and red bell peppers and protein. And I'm eating like crazy. I'm reading everything I can that says this is what makes your skin heal. I'm trying to sleep more. I've got to go play Master Musicians Festival 2 days later, right after I cut it. So I put a thumb pick on this finger, and I don't have much control over it. But I just played Master Musicians like this. And we got by. It was a layback show, and it's more visual than anything. So each day I'm like, oh, God, I wonder if I can hold a pick. So 2 days before time to go to the studio, I take all the bandaging and stuff off, and I could hold a pick. Didn't have a lot of control, but I could play. I thought, well, this is good. Each day gets better. So by the time we get to the Monday, I'm going to record Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I can hold it and play. Not my best playing, but I can play. But I got Russ Paul playing guitar on it, who I've just fallen in love with, and I want to go to his house and live with him. So I'm like, why am I even worried about it? And Jesse Wells is there.
Really?
So there's plenty of good guitar players. And I wound up playing a whole lot of just rhythm acoustic and letting those guys go to town. Now I play some stuff.
Who else is on it?
So Russ Paul, who's on Tyler's record, he plays electric guitar, pedal steel. He plays some lap steel kind of stuff. He puts some 12-string and stuff on it, some acoustic. He's just whatever. Jesse Wells is playing fiddle and mandolin and banjo and whatever else. JT Cure's on it, who's Chris Stapleton's bass player. And I've known JT for a long time. He's from here as well. Yeah. And so some gigs with McNerlin, we would get JT to play bass. In fact, and I joked about this when I saw JT. I said, JT, the last time I saw you, we were in prison because we did a prison gig with McNerlin, and JT played bass, and that's the last time I ever played with him. So those are the players, and I brought Hayden Miles to play drums because I just don't really know a better drummer than Hayden.
Totally agree.
Kenny comes along as a co-producer, and so that's the lineup. And I walk in with these song ideas, and the way it works, and I watched Tyler do this, or I would have been kind of dumbfounded by it. You sit down in the control room, Dave sits there and he said, all right, let's hear the song. So you take an acoustic guitar and you play it out. While you're playing it, they're charting it out in real time. They pretty much give everyone a chart, and you walk into the studio and you cut it.
I've seen guys do that charting in real time thing. It always blows my mind.
It's unbelievable. Well, the first things that'll happen is Dave will cut some fat off songs, and he's so good at that. It's like, why are you doing this 2 times here? You don't really need to. And so they really trim it down to where it's just the essential parts of the song. And you walk in, and what really just blew me away about Russ Paul is I had my image in my head of Nashville session musicians as being extremely proficient at their instrument. They go in, they're very businesslike, they play their cliche Nashville licks, and you're done. That's not what Russ, he is a creator. I mean, Russ Paul takes that song and he goes to another place with it.
That's cool.
That's
man.
beautiful.
Yeah.
To the point where, I don't think I'd ever feel this way, especially about a record I was doing. I thought, well, I've got to play the guitar parts because I made them up. And well, you just let Russ go. And
he played on Tyler's second record too?
Yeah. And I mean, he is a genius. And after every cut, Russ would come and tell me a story. Because like we're playing some song and he does this Waylon steel player. It was Ralph Mooney. So he does this Ralph Mooney like, oh God, Russ, that was so good. He goes, well, let me tell you about when I met Ralph Mooney. And he's got a story every time like that. And so I'm telling you, I was just starstruck by Russ. So the guitar playing, even though my thumb was kind of messed up, it wasn't that big of a deal because there were plenty of guys to do the job.
Huh.
And it's a pretty interesting record.
I have no doubt.
We cut the whole thing in 2 days. I went in on the third day and cleaned up a few vocals. And it's not even mixed. I just left town and came back. At some point, somebody will mix it.
And they're mixing it there at the butcher shop?
Yeah, they'll mix it there. There was a guy named Sean who was doing the engineering, and he'll mix it. And he was super cool, too. And he said he'll mix it. He'll send it to me, and I'll listen. If I want something changed, we'll change it. But those guys got a pretty good ear. I'm pretty trusting of them.
No kidding.
So, who knows when it'll come out. It may be the end of the year. It may be early next year. I don't know. It's whatever Hickman Holler decides. Hickman Holler is the label that pays me.
Right. So hopefully Tyler won't mind me telling this story. If you think I shouldn't tell it, I will just edit it out.
I'm going to drink while you do this.
I wish you would. So kicking it 2 years ago, Night Train goes on, and me and Tyler were sitting there talking, and I don't really remember exactly how it came up, but he was telling me the story of making the record and Stuart Duncan playing on his record and all those guys. And he said, we laid everything down, and I came back when they were mixing it, and I was sitting in the control room, and I just listened to the first little bit, the first couple songs. And he said, guys, I got to go to the bathroom. He said, I just went to the bathroom by myself, and I just sit there and cried. He said, my entire life I've been writing songs. I wanted them to sound and feel like this, and I never thought it would happen. And I sit and I listen to the record, and I hear me coming through the speakers, and I hear these songs being delivered that way and getting that mountain sound right. And I just couldn't control it. And I choke up telling that story because I can imagine what that feels like. Was there any element of that to you to hear what those records sounded like with songs that you had written?
Well, first off, let me say, and you're talking about the first Tyler record.
Yeah.
I remember when he got it done, and he comes and gets me, and he puts me in his vehicle, and he said, I want you to listen to this record. So he drove us around Irvin. There's no talking. We just drove in his little car, me and him and Teresa, and listened to that record. We never spoke the whole time. When we stopped, I just looked at him and I said, it's been good to know you, Tyler. Because I knew. I said, he's gone now.
Yeah.
He is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm much like Tyler. It's hard to believe that little dude writing them little songs back when I knew him sounds like this now. And you're right. They took him to a place that I don't think anyone thought he'd ever go. So with that being said, yeah, when we go back into the playback room and I'll listen to it, I'm going, I can't believe these songs sound this way, because I'd have like one little melodic figure that was kind of the base of the song, and now to hear Jesse playing it on fiddle and Russ doing something over here,
This big,
and they take it somewhere else. But I don't really like my singing, and so the whole time I'm listening to it, I listen to my voice going, well, boy, if this was somebody else singing, this would be a great song if it wasn't me singing. But I guess that's just natural too. But I'm not a natural singer, and someone has to say those words I make up, so I do it. But
no, I think your delivery for the stuff that you write makes perfect sense.
Well, you're too kind to say that.
No, it's there's a character, right? And I mean, it's if somebody besides Laidback was writing and was singing those laid-back songs, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, and when I sing it, Teresa has to remind me a lot too. She'll say, make sure you're laid back. Because if I sing it in the David voice, it doesn't work. But when I go into that laid-back voice, sometimes it's a lot better. Yeah. So she has to constantly remind me.
I would agree.
She'd say, laid-back, and I'll go, okay, I get it. But yeah, to hear those songs come to life from those guys' hands was something else.
And does that kind of psychedelic Bowie, Graham Parsons kind of influence, does that come through on this record?
Let's see. Yeah, there's a couple. And it's not psychedelic just for the sake of being psychedelic.
No, it's like cosmic. It's like...
Yeah. There's nothing really there's one song that's really eerie and spooky, and it's just about the future and how I don't like where robots and technology are going. That gets a real eerie sound, and Russ Paul was on it immediately. He knew exactly what to do. And then there's just a straight out funk song on there that's really cool. But nothing as psychedelic as what Bowie is. So.
Did you do songs from the first record on this one?
No.
Nothing?
No, we didn't touch it. It's all new stuff. But it's a few songs I've been playing live for a long time, but nothing that's on the new record or is on the old record.
I mean, I'd like to hear Put Me Away.
That's a pretty song.
I love that song. I could tell you meant it, too, when you wrote that.
Yeah. Well, I've got another one just like that. To me, it means just as much to me because this one song, I call it Bonaparte because Dad played Bonaparte's Retreat. That's why every word of that song is the absolute truth. Every bit of it. And it just makes me feel so good to sing it. And it's about growing up on Twin Branch. But it's sort of that put me away. I'm talking about the old people that had a big influence on me. My uncles, they really influenced my life a lot. So I got one more coming like that.
Man, that's probably going to hit me pretty hard.
It does me.
When Tyler had the Burl shows, he went and played at Pop's.
Yeah.
And Pop couldn't get his sound system to work, and I happened to have a wedge in my car, so I hooked that up.
Of course you did.
So I set all that up, and then Tyler played this song. I don't know. I don't think it's even going to be on this record, but it's about growing up in church, about his preacher growing up. Man, he was singing that song, and I lost it. I had to leave.
Yeah.
I was gone for 10 minutes. I mean, I just completely lost my composure. Because it's like, it's weird to hear people capture where we're from, like the essence of it.
Yeah.
In not just the way the songs is written, but the way they sound and feel, and the way they're performed, and the way they're written. It's all my life, I've heard about Hollywood and Tennessee and country music. People move from Louisa to Tennessee, and then they sing about Nashville.
Yeah.
But to hear your songs and Tyler's songs talking about Louisa, I connect with that in a different way I ever have anything.
Well, being from Louisa, and, if you want to throw that broad category of Appalachia or whatever, that's different from Nashville country.
It is.
This backwoods foothill stuff where me and Tyler come from, and lots of other people. It's something different.
To me, it's got that dark, heavy thing.
It does, doesn't it?
Like we were talking about with Johnny Cash. It's a different kind of thing, but this is some of my favorite country music that's ever been made.
Oh,
it's coming out right now.
Yeah, it's a fun.
I love it, man. I love it. What song are you most excited about on this record for people to hear? You got a lead single figured out?
I do, and there is no McGoffin County Cadillac on it. There's not one of those things that's got that universal. This is super cool. Probably the lead song we'll put out is called Kingsport. It's just about playing country music and treating people right. And it's a mover. It's a pretty nice little song. But I'll be honest with you, the one I'm probably most proud of is a song called They Only Come Around. And it's They Only Come Around Christmas time. And it's just,
I know that song.
Yeah. It turned into something really nice. Jesse and those guys took it somewhere else. And actually, listen to it on playback, I teared up a little
I can't wait to hear that.
It's my favorite song on the record.
I cannot wait to hear. I when you played at the Burl, I loved hearing that.
What do you hear with all these guys on it?
No kidding.
Yeah, so I'm proud of this record. But now I haven't heard it in a week. I may hear it now and go, oh my God, what was happening? How much medication was I on with this cut thumb? None, by the way, because I read that if you take ibuprofen, you don't heal as quickly. So
that's a fact.
Yeah, so I didn't take it. But I ate the kiwi.
So I see Tyler's video. I think you saw my Facebook post that I never thought I would see an animated hallucination of you out in the forest singing along with a chorus of bears in a music video that had 300,000 views in the first 2 days it was on the internet. Did you know that was going to happen?
I got a call from, I think it was Ian. Said, you want to be in the next Tyler video? No, I don't. Let's just, I'll wait for the next one. Like, well, yeah, I want to be in it. So they tell me where they're going to shoot. They're going to shoot it down in Nashville, and they give me a day to be down there. So I go down there, and it's like plans have kind of changed. And it's like, well, we're not really going to film you. You know, we're not going to use your actual likeness in it. He said, but we'll probably just animate you in. I was like, well, that's fine. So I meet Tony Moore down there. Are you familiar with Tony Moore?
Yeah.
So, Tony's doing all the animations.
He's an incredible artist.
Oh, my God.
Him and Jimbo both.
Oh, sure. Yeah, amazing. Jimbo Valentine, Tony Moore, those guys are up here.
Yeah, it's the scene that we have, music scene we have. I've heard you say it. I've heard a lot of people say it. Right now, what's happening here is Seattle 1992.
Yeah.
But it's a whole thing, too. Like, we have the art, too. And it's those two guys. It's cooler than anything else out there.
They are. And, also, you drag in a bunch of photographers who seem to take lots of photographs of this scene, too. And there's a handful of them that are everything. And then you just got super fans like Roger. Roger shows up at every show.
Jeff Cox.
Yeah, and people say, and I've heard outsiders from other parts of the state or other parts of the country say, that's the only music scene where the fans actually have fan pages and people know who they are.
Yeah.
People know who Jeff Cox is.
Yeah.
He's a rock star too.
I know, it's amazing.
And I hate to start naming names because you'll leave a bunch out. Damn it, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those guys are just as important to this scene as the musicians are.
I think Gino gets both sides of it.
Oh, Gino does because he's a great performer.
Yeah.
But boy, there's not a bigger supporter than Gino.
I love it, man.
He's the nicest guy on the planet.
So getting back to the Tyler video, teaching freshman Tyler Childers in your class.
Yeah.
If I had told you that this whole scenario was going to play out the way that it did, how would you have reacted to that? Specifically that video and the whole thing in general.
Yeah, I don't think I would have seen it being that psychedelic because when you see, if I want to put myself in the place I was in when I was teaching Tyler as a freshman, I know he's a gifted songwriter, but I really saw him going down more of a Bob Dylan road. He was really wordy and he was using a lot of imagery and stuff.
That's where he was.
Yeah, and that's what he was writing. To see him really slam into hardcore country and then take it down the psychedelic road, I didn't see that coming. I don't think anyone can see it. But boy, he's mastered it, hasn't he?
And so tell me about Tyler Childers, the freshman.
I knew his dad. He was a couple of grades under me named Tim Childers. And I really knew Tim's older brother, Jim, a lot better. I'd run around with him some. So, like so many kids I have in class, I know their parents probably, or grew up with them, whatever. So Tyler just, as soon as you meet him, you can real quick tell about kids if they're genuine kids, and he was. He was a straight up guy. If you told him to go to the bathroom and not go throw a rock through a window, he was going to do that. Smart kid. But, I found out he's playing music, and he's real into guitars. He's got a little Yamaha and stuff. And so, he's like, have you heard this? Have you heard that? Do you know who Jack Kerouac is? All these questions. And no freshman ever asked me that before. Like, yeah, I do, Tyler, and I'm happy you do. His parents had taken him up to, where is it the Kerouac's buried? Somewhere in Massachusetts. Is it Lowell? Maybe. They'd taken him to see Kerouac's grave, and that was cool. He was getting ready to buy a guitar. Like, what should I buy? I want to get something. I said, well, buy a Martin. Don't fool around talking to me. He's whatever, go get a Martin. So he got a Martin. And through the year that I had him, his songwriting just gets better and better and better. He would write lyrics out and give them to me. And I would take them home to Teresa and go, look at this. A freshman wrote this. And we both just go, how does this kid know this stuff?
He could deliver the lyrics even then, too.
Oh, he could. So we have this little program at school I'm involved in called KYA. It's Kentucky Youth Assembly. Did you go to KYA?
I didn't go to KYA, but there's a different Tyler trip we'll talk about that we were both on.
Okay. So I take a Tyler, and it's basically a meeting from schools all over the state, and you get together and you have a mock government. It's really cool. So I take Tyler down there his freshman year. He takes his guitar. And so Tyler's just running up and down the halls, and he's playing that guitar, and he's singing a lot of Johnny Cash. And about that period, his voice was getting deeper. So he's really squeaking along.
Yeah, he played Folsom Prison a lot.
Yeah, that was a big song for him. But, you know, all the girls are paying attention. Like, who's this cute little red-haired kid? But the thing I remember the most about him is he had gotten into some Starbucks or something and was wired. And he was laying in the floor playing his guitar. And I know he didn't have shoes on. I'll never forget this. It's like, Tyler, you got to go to bed now. I mean, we're in a hotel where there are people who they're airplane pilots who are getting ready to fly out of here. And they need to sleep. And Tyler is just like he's out of control, wired on caffeine, playing guitar. And we pretty much had to physically put him in a room and say, go to sleep. And I'll just never forget that about him.
My image of him in high school is he had that tweed jacket he would always run around in, and he had that thermos, and he would have coffee thick as turpentine.
Yeah.
And he would, just by fourth period, he'd be bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, he enjoyed the caffeine.
There was, did he make use of your fridge the way Jenna and I did?
I don't recall if he did or not.
So I would keep a gallon of green tea in your fridge at all times.
Yeah.
And I had a thermos. I'd refill it, drink the tea. Tyler drink his coffee all day. I'd drink tea all day. And one day Tyler tried it. I don't know why this sticks with me as much as it does. But one day Tyler tried it, and he's like, man, what is that? That's good. I'm like, that's tea. He's like, that's not tea. I'm like, it's green tea. And he's like, really? So that night, he got his parents to take him to Citgo or something, and he buys a gallon of green tea just like I did, except he drank the whole gallon of tea.
I'll guarantee it.
And so I told him that day, I was like, Tyler, if you're not used to this, I mean, it'll mess with you. Like, you're going to be in the bathroom tomorrow. Of course, he didn't believe me. He drinks a gallon of tea, and I think he probably had to go to the bathroom about every period of school the next day.
You know, I really think, though, that story really explains who Tyler is he's going to experience it.
Yeah.
You know what? You can tell him not to do this, but I think he's going to do it.
Yeah.
To find out.
Yeah. We had the trip I remember was the All-State Choir trip. No, it wasn't All-State Choir. It was the men's choir that we had. You went on that trip, didn't you?
Yeah, Jane and Sue would reel me into all
Jane
this
and Sue really. James was there. Tyler, Mitch, me. It was the guys. There's a picture. You remember the men's choir thing that we did?
Yeah.
So Tyler wasn't even supposed to be in it because he was a freshman. But I mean, you can't have Tyler Childers in your school and not let him in the men's choir.
Yeah. But he wasn't even Tyler Childers then.
No, but he was.
He was a red-haired kid who could sing.
But he was Tyler Childers, who was a freshman and could sing.
Yeah.
I remember we played at the Mac. I remember he couldn't tie his bow tie, which like clipped on. I don't know why I remember stuff like this. I remember putting his bow tie on him at the Mac right before we went out. But anyway, we were out in the courtyard at that hotel that every education convention is at in Louisville.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
It's something else now. It used to be the Executive West. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember what it was called, but it was the same deal. We were all out in the courtyard, and they had to make him go to bed. He just sat out in the courtyard, but he played. He might not like me telling this, but he played Wagon Wheel over and over and over. He played Wagon Wheel and Folsom Prison Blues and stuff that he wrote, and a couple Dylan tunes.
Yeah.
And then we
was Adam Chafin's in that choir too?
He was. So think about that small group of kids.
Yeah.
So Adam and Tyler, Mitch could sing then too.
You're right.
And look at what Adam's doing now.
Yeah, Adam's getting ready to explode, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It's unreal. So it was around that time, Tyler so when I was in middle school, Adam was in high school, and I was excited that there was another music kid. And so I started playing with Adam, and then I don't remember the details on how that ended up not sticking the way I thought it was going to, but I was excited when Tyler came to high school too, because it was Adam and me and Tyler and the Salyers kid, who's a great guitar player. Justin's phenomenal player.
Gosh,
yeah, he's phenomenal. He should be in Nashville doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I remember Justin, someone saying, Justin plays guitar, and I remember asking, do you play guitar, Justin?
No,
yeah.
He plays guitar,
but,
man.
15 kids say, I play guitar.
Yeah.
But he played, and like, nobody can do this.
No, he's a flat-picking absolute monster.
Oh, Tony Rice League.
Yeah, he really is. No, and he was in high school.
Yeah, and no one knew. I mean, he didn't advertise it. He's like, oh, yeah, I can play. Well, gosh, I wish I could do that.
So Tyler's parents decided to let Tyler go to see Bob Dylan with us at Applebee's Park around the time of that choir trip. And I don't think he'd ever been to a big rock show before. His parents probably called him every 30 minutes. I mean, they were worried about him. And as excited he was about green tea, standing there watching Bob Dylan, I don't know, man. one of the great joys of my life in retrospect is that Tyler and me and Dad got to go see Bob Dylan in Lexington.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
You know, and his parents, you mentioned them, they've been so supportive of him, and whatever they thought Tyler needed, they allowed him to chase that dream.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's paid off pretty well.
Boy, no kidding. I think an advantage that Tyler has, you know, have you watched Springsteen on Broadway thing yet?
No.
Are you a Springsteen guy?
I turned into one.
Yeah. So one of the things he talks about is like half monologue, half singing. He talks about how he feels like the reason he was successful, he said he felt like he had to choose an artistic voice, and not knowing what to choose, and him and his dad were kind of estranged. He chose what he imagined would be his dad's voice as a songwriter. And he said he feels like he's been successful as an artist because he stayed true to that, what he called an aesthetic philosophy in music, which normally aesthetics, you think visually, but I know what he means. And I'd never heard anybody put it that way. But there is a visual element to telling those stories, right?
Yeah.
And there's a certain feel that those kinds of songs have, that Americana kind of thing. And I think intrinsically, when Tyler first picked up a guitar, I think he knew who he wanted to be and who he was. I felt like there's this kind of folky but kind of heavy kind of thing that Tyler's always had since he picked up a guitar. I mean, even if you listen to that first record that you all did,
yeah,
Cole's Gonna Bury You, that became Nose to the Grindstone.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
Right.
Yeah, he was writing some dark stuff.
He was, and so I just feel like part of the thing that he had and has is a really strong sense of his artistic identity. And all he's done over time is really refine that, flesh it out, and polish it. And now he's got this whole universe.
Yeah.
But I think we've always been headed there.
He has sent me, like, he'll come up with a song and he'll record it on his phone, and he has sent me first recordings of songs that he made up for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I still have them all, and it's quite a collection of stuff. But yeah, you're right. A lot of those things are super dark, super heavy. It's Tyler's voice telling stories that we can all relate to, especially from being back home. You know exactly what he's talking about. But yeah, he has refined it.
Getting back to what I was saying, asking you earlier about a common thread in what you like, I've always been able to hear Chico, in whatever you're doing, in a way that I can't explain. But I think what I hear is the thing that you like about bands that you listen to.
Well, that's good, I think.
No, it is good. It is good, but it's like you can kind of hear what you've always been reaching for, and it comes through and laid back the same way as it did Night Train.
Well, I try not to write songs that I find not appealing. Like if I make up a song,
that's probably good.
Yeah, I mean, if I make up a song and it's just very cliched and there's nothing interesting about it, then I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to hear this, so I don't think anybody else does. So I've tried to write riffs or put chord structures together or use words where I would go, oh, that's pretty clever. I like that.
Do you ever get so in the weeds on something that you can't tell if it's good or not?
Oh, all of them. Everything you write's that way.
Yeah.
And that's where Teresa is such a good sounding board. And I throw a lot of stuff off her. And a lot of stuff she's like, you've hit on this one. And other things she's like, keep moving.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's brilliant at that.
She writes good songs, man.
Yeah, and it's a whole different, we write completely different, but sure, she's a great songwriter too.
Yeah, she's got really good sensibilities about her, I think.
Yeah, and this is a period, this is all laid back right now. And she hadn't put a record out for a while, but she's starting to write a little bit. So I think there's...
Is that going to be a Hickman Holler record?
I don't know. I don't know if it works that way or not. We have to talk to Shady Boggs about that.
Shady thinks of everything.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier. You were talking about Springsteen writing with his dad's voice. Or, was he being literal, saying like his dad's voice, or just the things he thought his dad would approve of?
No. It's kind of literal. It's like, as an author, you have a voice, right? If you're writing a book or writing an article, you have a voice in how you write. And it's this guy that kind of grew up rough in Jersey, right? Who had some deep flaws and some redeeming qualities, but was kind of a real American kind of story.
Yeah.
And I think he chose deliberately to write with his dad's voice because he didn't know his dad that well.
That's interesting. You know, the reason I was thinking in a more literal term, because when I write, especially when I was writing Night Train, any song I ever wrote for Night Train was written with Dan Baird singing it. No, from the Georgia side. Every time I wrote a lyric for that band, when I'm sitting there writing, it's Dan Baird singing. And that wasn't necessarily good because that's
Dan know
that? No, Dan doesn't know it. I mean, I barely know Dan. I know Rick real well. I don't know Dan that well. But what would happen was I'd write all these songs, and I'm hearing in my head and Dan Baird singing, and they're great songs. Well, then I couldn't sing them. I mean, I couldn't do what Dan would have done, so I had to move some stuff around. But from the beginning to the end of Night Train, any lyric I wrote, Dan Baird sang it. And it's kind of weird.
That's cool.
I don't know if it is or not, but that's how I'm.
Night Train was an influential band on me when I was a kid.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. We should get into that, actually. Talk to me about Cold Ethel.
Cold Ethel was when we. So it's myself, it's Bill Hammond on drums, it's Jeff Rogers on bass, and there would be points in time when Daryl Hall would be playing guitar. Daryl was in sometimes, he was out sometimes. You know, Bill's a smart guy. Bill was really into the new wave scene, and just his spectrum of the music he listened to was way beyond what Jeff and I were listening to. Well, at least me, maybe not Jeff. He was the guy going to the record store buying some records we didn't even know what they sounded like, just because he was taking a shot on them, see if they were cool. So Bill really had a lot of English bands that he was into, so we got into them. So we're listening to The Clash, and we're listening to Nick Lowe, and a lot of people that I'd never been exposed to. So Cold Ethel was playing with kind of an English vibe. You know, I got my Mott the Hoople shirt on because of, Bill turned us on to Mott the Hoople. Yeah. So we're playing Mott the Hoople songs. You know, we weren't very good musicians, but we got better. Bill had a store, and we practiced in the basement of that store, and it was just this big open stone pit. And I had a 50-watt half-stack Marshall, and Jeff had a big giant bass rig, and we played so loud down in that basement. I have hearing loss, and that's probably why.
Oh, I do too.
But we sat there and beat it out just night after night, and we wrote a lot of original stuff, and we kind of found a voice together in Cold Ethel. We became a band.
How was that reunion gig?
You know, it was interesting. It was amazing how we could go back and still pretty much play about everything. Maybe we rehearsed every song one time. We just kind of knew them because, honestly, we got together almost, it seemed like 5 nights a week and hammered. So that stuff's ingrained.
Are there kids in high school that do that now?
I don't think so. I don't think bands do that. Maybe kids sit and play guitar a lot, but I don't think bands play.
Yeah. I was fortunate to grow up doing that. I didn't do it 5 days a week, and we weren't as good as you all, but
I don't know how good we were.
It was fun.
We become a cohesive unit. We could all start and stop at the same time with great accuracy.
Same chord?
Most of the time. Now, what we did in between was anyone's guess. But, yeah, we were pretty good at that.
So, talk to me about Teresa, and then let's tie that in once we get to Night Train and Loot.
Okay.
So, the origins of your relationship with Teresa.
Teresa is a year younger than me, and so there was a period of time where I'm hanging out with older kids, which seems to be what I know you did that too. I like to hang out with the older kids. So there was a group of kids: Ed Cordell, Jeff Rogers, and Evelyn Williams, who all and Della Cordell. They all would hang out together, and I'd hang out with them because they were older than me.
Keep talking. I just remember
Okay.
It's time for sandwiches.
Okay, you get that going. So I wanted to be cool, so I'm hanging out with them, and Evelyn's sister is Teresa. So I kind of get to know Teresa, just briefly because she's Evelyn's sister. Find out that Teresa is a Tom Petty fan. And that's really super important because I thought Tom Petty was really good. And really, you could say that the common thread of Tom Petty really brought us together. So we get to know her. She's got a great sense of humor, but more importantly, she laughs at everything I do like it's really super funny. And we just, I don't know, there's some people that you just trust them as soon as you meet them. And that's what happened with her. I just trusted her completely.
So she was a Tom Petty fan. Was she playing guitar back then?
No, she didn't play guitar. Her brother played guitar, and she had asked to learn how to play, and I don't think he would show her. So one of the first things I did was show her a couple of chords on guitar. So
because I never heard her play till you all started doing the Luna thing. I didn't know she played.
Yeah, I mean, early on when we first got married, I showed her how to play, and I mean, she took to it. She could play. She was a natural at playing. But yeah, I'm happy with the fact that I think I got her on the road to play guitar.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so it allowed her to create and express herself, and that's really important to her. She's very therapeutic in her writing. I write songs because I want to tell a goofy story.
Yeah.
She writes songs because she's got to get something off her chest.
No, it's the Blaine Girl, Pepsi Girl.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, hers are super mean.
But I can hear you doing Mike Campbell whenever you play with her.
Wow, who doesn't want to be Mike Campbell?
Yeah, but it makes sense because that's the influence, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, talk to me about the formation of Night Train. That happened around radio station time, or was it before that?
It probably just a hair before, because I was playing with McNerlin. I run into Rob. I go to a music store in Ashland called the Guitar Store. So I'm just hanging out down there wanting to get guitars and stuff, and there's this big cowboy dude in there, and he's playing a song by the band. And I remember I grabbed a guitar and went over and jumped in with him because I knew the song by the band, and that's the first time we ever met. And so Rob and I just sort of hit it off, and Rob had a band at the time, and he had his cousin, Bobby Lee, was playing drums for him. And some way John Gostovich gets in we were Rob McNerlin and Beating the Cowboys, and Gostovich is playing bass. So as Night Train...
Was James Hill playing drums? Who was playing drums?
No, Bobby Lee.
I'm sorry, Bobby. You just told me that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I should listen.
It's okay. It was the baloney's distracted me. So while we're playing with McNerlin, and, all of us have this real big love at this time for Waylon. So when Rob would be off doing something or whatever, we would start jamming some Waylon together, and we was like, we need to get a band together. So we got George Ray to play bass for us, and Gostovich wasn't in the band for whatever reason in the beginning. And we just kind of three-pieced it, and Night Train just evolved out of that. We were a speed metal country band, in a way.
Speed metal?
I don't know. Bob plays fast. Bob doesn't groove a song. He hammers a song.
I thought you were an early Bon Scott AC/DC country band.
Okay, maybe that's a better description of it. But I mean, we would play songs like White Lightning, and they would hammer.
Oh, that's true.
We would play those super fast. Georgia Satellites, once again, are a huge influence on us because those were guys playing country songs through Marshalls. And that's just naturally the road we went down.
So I remember the guitar decapitation Septemberfest show.
Yeah.
That wasn't a real 68 Les Paul, right?
You tell me. Check the video. Have I told you, we've talked about this before, did I tell you the initial plan for that whole thing?
No.
So we're going to play Septemberfest, and this is a big deal. This is the hometown festival. Everyone comes out. There's a giant crowd. You're on a pro PA. So we're headliners for one night. It's like, I got to give the people a show. I got to do something.
Right.
So my plan was I wanted to go get a weather balloon at some Navy surplus store. I wanted to pump it full of helium. And on the last song, I was going to hook that Les Paul to it with a wireless and just let it go. And the Les Paul would just sail out over the crowd and be gone. That was the plan. So I never could find a weather balloon anywhere, and I couldn't get it together. So I thought, well, the next logical choice is I need to cut it in half with a chainsaw. So I, at the end of the night, we bring out two sawhorses, and we lay the Les Paul in there, and it's screaming and feeding back. And I take a little pole and chainsaw and just rip it right in half.
You played Septemberfest a couple years, right?
Yeah.
Night Train. Was that the first or second year?
That's probably the second year, I'm guessing.
So the first year, I got to stay for the whole show during that one. The first year, so I grew up, where our farm is. It's 5 or 6 minutes from town.
Yeah.
But it still borders 23. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I do.
So, we talked about the sign.
Yeah.
So I could sit on my deck. I remember sitting on my deck. I bought your CD that day. I remember sitting on the deck and listening to Night Train from our farm at your Septemberfest gig. And then I went to bed, put that CD on. I stayed up all night listening to that record. I probably listened to the whole record 6 or 7 times.
Well, that's awesome, and it makes me happy you could hear us from that far away.
I think that always happens when it's like humid.
Yeah.
You can hear trains and you can hear the Septemberfest bands.
That's super
but
cool.
that was the clearest I ever heard anything from Septemberfest, was that night. I mean, I could hear what you were saying. It was unreal.
I hope we did a good show for you.
But I'll never forget both of those.
Yeah, it was, I'm pretty proud of cutting the old guitar in half. That was all right. If I don't do anything else, cool. When you're frying up bologna, you want to talk about bologna?
I do. I thought that timing would work.
Okay, so in Night Train, the drummer, Bobby Lee, his day job is he's a butcher. And that's all he's ever done. And he's a really good butcher. And I don't know how we came up with this gimmick. I'm sure it was Bob's idea. But Bob thought it would be a good idea while we played music if we would hook up a griddle and fry bologna sandwiches while we're playing.
Right.
And so when we get to the end of the night, then he will serve those bologna sandwiches to the patrons there in the bar.
You never got any static from health department about that?
Never. And to be honest, where Bob is a butcher, he kept stuff immaculately clean. I mean, he was obsessed with making sure things were clean, and it's probably a good thing. But we would always, by a third set, he'd have a pan of bologna frying on stage, and at the end of probably the fourth set, we would pass out bologna sandwiches. And a lot of people were drunk, and they needed a bologna sandwich. But yeah,
man,
we always had them.
I saw this thing the other day. Bologna's just hot dog pancakes.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's pretty much accurate, isn't it?
It is accurate, but it's like Pete Rose said. He said, a hot dog at a baseball game is better than a steak at the Ritz.
Yeah.
There's a timeliness of eating bologna where
Absolutely.
it's the best thing you can eat.
Oh, yeah. And you put mustard on this, didn't you?
Of course.
Oh, it's a home run right here. It's beautiful.
But I remember Jimmy feeding us bologna sandwiches at Kicking It 2 years ago, and I don't think I ever enjoyed a bologna sandwich more than that.
It was smoked bologna, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, he
It
smokes.
was so good.
He smokes it some way, and it's really good. Bob, too, being a butcher, he's real particular about the meats he used, and he would only use Cavalier bologna. You know, because I was a Cons guy, but Bob's like, no, it has to be Cavalier, because Cavalier was made in. Is it? See, I'm a Cons dude,
Yeah.
but you couldn't go that route with Bob. It had to be Cavalier. Cavalier came from Huntington.
Does he eat bologna?
I don't know. I think he's a bologna guy. But yeah, there's a lot to it. To be a bologna gourmet.
I forgot he was a butcher. I always wondered about that story.
Yeah, he was a butcher, and he drives a Hearst. So
I do remember that.
I said Hearst. It's Hearst.
Hearst.
Where did I get it's a Hearst shifter and a Hearst car. Got it. Yeah, and he's still, I love Bob, and he's still out there playing. He hammers 3 or 4 nights a week still. As hard as
really?
yeah, and I mean he's playing those 4 and 5 set of night gigs. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
But that's what Bob still does, and
Especially as a drummer.
yeah, I don't see how he has a stamina. We're not young anymore, but he's still killing it.
Adrenaline, man.
I guess so. And that's all he knows. I mean, he knows to go out and play 4 sets a night.
Yeah.
I've become spoiled now. If I play more than 75 minutes, I'm done.
That's probably 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe more. I was at a gig he played, and he retired afterward. And we were talking. Maybe it was at the V Club.
Those are hard gigs because they're late.
But you said to me, I enjoy these gigs more than I ever have in my entire life. Because I think about, I don't know how many more I'm going to have like this.
Yeah.
And so you just savor it more. And it's just funny. I keep thinking about when you said that because that was before this whole laid back thing took off and happened. And now you're, I think, in a place you've never been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to see Tyler in Atlanta. Did I tell you this story?
No.
I went to see Tyler in Atlanta, and I'm walking to the car after the show. This is like hour and a half or so after the show was over. And I see this kid in the laid-back face shirt, and I'm wearing one. He says, I love that dude. And I'm like, are you from Kentucky? He's like, no, man, I'm from Indianapolis. And I'm like, you serious? He's like, yeah, I found out about it through Tyler Childers. And that's when it hit me like, this is a bona fide thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But I send shirts all over the country, and I have people who talk to me on Facebook, and it's like they're my friend almost because we've conversed back and forth and have some common interests. But yeah, there are people out there who like laid back that I don't really know who they are. It's not like kids I had in school, and that's kind of weird. I've got a level of fame that I wasn't ready for.
Do you know what your level of fame is?
No, I have no idea.
See, it's like when I brought this up to you, you're like, Dad, I don't think anybody's going to want to listen to what I have to say.
And I still think that.
You got to quit thinking that, man.
Well, I don't know.
They made a movie about you, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody with an iPhone can go out and make a movie. Not that that's not what Zach did.
Not like that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just don't see it that way. I live in my little world where, my world's pretty small in a way.
No, I think that's good. I absolutely think that's good, and I certainly appreciate your humility.
Well, I'm not fishing for a compliment. I really think it.
No, but I do think I think humility is good, but I also think don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, but I know what I do, and I know there's so many people that could do it so much better.
Not what you do.
Well, there's only one laid back.
There's only one laid back.
For
can only be one laid back.
I
Cheers.
hope so. Cheers. Waiting on you. Oh man, this is leaking.
Sorry, man.
Good. Good work.
So anyway, Night Train happened, and I remember after Night Train, even before Super Chimp, you had all these shirts, old Night Train shirts in boxes in your class when you were in the middle.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you going to do with those shirts? You said, I don't know. I said, you said, I think music's probably over for me at this point. That was 2007.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way. I thought it'd run.
No, that was 2004.
I'm glad you can remember those years because I can't. But yeah, I thought after Night Train, it just kind of ran its course.
I'm glad it did.
Me too.
So, but then shortly after that, the Luna thing got going, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
McNerland had always been pretty vocal about recording a record with Teresa. You know, because Teresa been writing a few little things along. And Rob's like, man, we just need to make you a record. We're like, I don't know what that means. But Rob's got a little home studio. So he kept pushing to where we just go down there with Rob and we pretty much cut it live. And she'd put all these songs together, and it's real acoustic based. And I think it's still maybe my favorite Luna record is that first one.
I think it is too.
And, Teresa is a great singer, but we'd never really recorded before. And she had played guitar long enough where she was a good guitar player, but I don't think she was super confident. And the way Rob recorded was, he hit the button and said, go.
Yeah.
So you got to play your guitar, but you got one take.
Yeah.
You're singing and playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's the way she made that record. And, man, she did really well at it. Because Teresa can do that. She can deliver on a first take. I really can't. But I sat there and, I'm used to playing my amp super loud. And in this setting, I had to play kind of quiet, which made me play different. But it made an eerie kind of interesting sounding little record.
I have always thought you all sounded better live than the records you made, except for that first record.
Yeah, because the first record
I didn't know that.
We're pretty subdued. We're all dead live. So I used a compressor on my amp. And I don't like to use stuff like that. But I needed some sustain. So I put a compressor on just so the notes would ring out a little bit longer. And I hear that plain as day when I listen to that record.
Compressor pedal, or you put a compressor in the loop?
No, it's compressor pedal. I had some little orange compressor pedal that I used. It's just kind of weird. In a way, to me, compressors just suck the life out of stuff.
They do.
But they do make them sustain. So
yeah.
If you listen to that record, that's what's going on.
Except the country, the chicken picking guys can use a compressor in, I think, an artful kind of way.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is not, they're not really using it as a compressor. It's just part of it's like an effect.
Yeah.
Not what you think of as like using it in a mixed context or covering up sloppy playing.
Yeah. Well, I think when I'm playing my best, too, I get loud sometimes and quiet sometimes, and compressors just want to make everything this way. And it doesn't suit the way I play. So
yeah.
I don't use them anymore. What is this stuff?
That's the best blue cheese dressing you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah, that's a big statement, though.
It's a room temperature, though, unfortunately.
Well, that's good.
It's better when it's real cold. They make that over at Double Dogs. And I always get extra just so I keep a stockpile in the fridge because that's how I eat it.
Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, we crank out a Luna record, start playing some shows. We start playing with Jeff Ware and Jordan Ware as a band. Those guys are great musicians. So we record another record in Glasgow where the Headhunters record with Luna. A little bit different setting, bigger studio. But she's made some fine records, and she just writes some wonderful songs.
So the Headhunters and the Georgia Satellites, both big influences.
Absolutely. Both.
But guys you have close relationships with now.
I do.
Which is amazing to me. I love that.
Oh, and I mean, that's no joke. When I was first coming up and starting to hammer this rock and roll stuff out, that Satellites record comes out and the Headhunters record come out. And in a way and too, that the Steve Earle Copperhead Road came out. All that hit at one time. And I kind of went, all these guys beat me to the punch. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do, but they do it so much better. And that gave me, there's a place for country guys that want to play through a Marshall. So as I got to know them, I'm just overjoyed.
How did you get to know them?
I got to know the Satellites by just going to their shows. They played, I think it was Lexington, and the next night they played Newport. And I went to both those shows and stood right in the front row. So by the second night in Newport, they kind of noticed who I was, because I guess I kind of stand out. I was like, hey, Rick, what's going on? He's like, well, man, you'll come hang out backstage. I mean, it was just innocent stuff. And I didn't let it go. You know, I would follow them around like crazy. And they just sort of got to know me and trust me. And at one point, Rick Richards says, you know, if you want to go out with us for a week or something, just jump in the van. You can go with us. I was like, you know I do. And I'll never forget driving down the road in Georgia. And Rick Price is driving. And I got a cup of coffee. And Rick said, man, you care if I have half your coffee? And I'm just going, Rick Price is going to drink half my cup of coffee right now. You can just kill me right now. Because I love those guys, man.
Is that like Bob Weir asking Tyler for a dip?
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. And we were on, too. I think we're on US 82, which is referenced in a song that the satellites were on. I'm on US 82, and Rick Price is drinking my coffee. And Rick Richards is laying in the back mad because we're going to Wendy's or something. But, yeah, I'm hanging out with my heroes. And so with Headhunters, they record, they're from the Glasgow area. And I wanted to go record at Dave Barry's studio in Glasgow because that's where they recorded. I thought, well, Dave knows how to get the sound. And I think also Black Cat Bone and Angstrom had recorded there. And a lot of people had. He had been in Lexington and he went back to Glasgow, I think. So we go out there and we make our little Night Train record. And I guess Dave had let Richard Young from the Headhunters hear it. And so I get home and I got a phone call. It's a voicemail. It's like, hey, man, this is Richard Young. The Headhunters, we heard your record, man. We want you to know that we really like what you're doing. You're on the right track.
No joke.
And so I didn't let that go either. So I just hounded them and got to know them to where they're just really good friends of mine now. They're past the musician thing. They're just friends of mine now.
Am I remembering this right? Didn't you send a tape to the Satellites because you wanted to join that band at one point?
I think I did because I would record myself playing with some of their stuff, I think, and send so I need to be in your band.
I think that first Satellites record is one of the most start to finish criminally underappreciated rock and roll records ever made.
Yeah, if you think that they're just keep your hands to yourself, then you're not paying attention because those guys are brilliant. Rick Richards is a brilliant singer and guitar player.
Just a vibe.
And he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. He's just hilarious. He's super smart too, man. Those guys are so smart, and you'll appreciate this. I was still in college when I first went out on the road with him, and I remember we're driving down the road. It's like, man, what are you going to school for? I said, well, I'm going to teach. Where do you go teach? I'm going to teach social studies and teach economics and stuff. He said, man, you ever read Atlas Shrugged? I was like, no. He said, you're telling me you're going to teach economics and you've never read Atlas Shrugged? Kind of looked down like, no, I haven't read it, Mr. Richards. I'm sorry. So I get out of the van with him. I go find it, and it's this thick. It's like, I get it. And I was like, I'm going to read. I have to read this. Rick Richards told me I need to read it. And I just can't do it. I can't read that.
Tedious.
Yeah, it's like, I can't do it. So years later, man, I asked Rick about it. I said, do you remember saying that to me? He said, no, I have no idea. I said, well, man, you really shame me because, you'd read Atlas Shrugged. He said, wait a minute. He said, I've never read that. I said, I'm not going to read that stuff. I was like, oh, I love you, Rick Richards.
That's like the Ricky Bobby story.
Or go through a few cards.
That's what we'll do.
All right.
I actually have a similar story to the Headhunter story. So about 2004, Mom had this thing like if we went to a rest stop, how they have the brochures. She would grab 2 copies of all of them.
Yeah,
she was all about literature. So when we were on vacation in Myrtle Beach, we went down there to play at the Pavilion. But when we were down there, they had a music weekly circular called the Weekly Surge that came out that spotlighted bands in Myrtle Beach. And there was this article about this band that was starting to get popular, and they had a distribution thing worked out with Universal, but they were on Bill McGathy's label, who managed like all the like early 2000s bands like Three Doors Down and all those bands. So I was that piqued my curiosity. So I went to Walmart, bought their CD. I bought 3 or 4 CDs that day, but theirs was by far my favorite because they were radio friendly commercial rock for the early 2000s, but they weren't cookie cutter. They had 2 lead singers and they harmonized and you couldn't tell one from another. And the songs are really, really well crafted, I felt like, for that genre. So the name of that band was Echo 7, and they were I got real active on their forum, because then it wasn't all social media. Every band had their own website and their own forum. And I mean, I was on their forum every day. So I heard that they were playing in Huntington. They were having a battle of the bands in Huntington, and then there was going to be this national recording artist doing a concert at Ritter Park after the battle of bands. So I got Kristen Moon to take me to Huntington, and I went into the radio station, and I said, hey, I got a band. I want to be in the battle of bands. I was 13 or 14. And I forget, I don't know if it was Eric or who it was that was there, and he was like, how old are you? And I was like, 14. And he was like, you realize the winner of this contest gets their song in a beer commercial, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, you're not even going to be legally allowed to drink for the next 7 years, so I don't think you can be in the battle of bands. And I was like, man. And I knew we wouldn't do very well. I just wanted access. So Dad took me to the concert, and we went like 2 hours early. And we walk in, we're the only people there at the park, except for Scotty Maynard, who's MC. And Dad says, Scotty? And I'm like, okay, what is this? Apparently Scotty was a client of Dad's, and they got along great. So when that happened, that was the equivalent of a pass to me. I could do whatever I wanted. So I went back there, and the guys in Echo 7 were unloading their gear. And I got to talking to him, and then I talked to him for probably the next 3 hours, however long the Battle of Bands was. And then they went out and played, dedicated a couple songs to me, gave me their set list, signed a bunch of gear for me. And I can't explain to you how exciting that was for me. You probably know, because you had the same experience with the Headhunters. Yeah. Well, next they went on tour with Queensryche. And I never got to go to one of those. They played at, was it Jillian's in Cincinnati? It's closed now?
Yeah, I forgot about that place.
Yeah, it was a great place. But Mom and Dad wouldn't let me go for whatever reason. So, and I kept in touch with them. We'd email back and forth through the rest of their tour, which is great. I mean, why were they doing that when I was 14? I don't know, but I piqued their curiosity, I guess. So anyway, I go to the website while they're on this, just after this Queensryche tour, and the website's gone. And what had happened was their entire record label had shut down. It wasn't like they lost their deal. Their record label just didn't exist anymore. And they had blown their budget on recording this record, and they didn't have any money to tour with, and they got in a big fight, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we go down to the beach, and Ronnie emails me. He's like, hey, I stopped checking this email because we're not even a band anymore. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, but we play acoustic shows for a living now every night. We're playing at Shuckers. Y'all should come out. I'm like, okay. So we go to Shuckers, and then they bring me up, and I play a couple songs with them when I'm 15. And I'm doing this thing. Yeah. I still can't believe that happened. But since then, we've hung out with them every year that we've gone down there for almost the last 16, 18 years. And Ronnie flew up and played my wedding reception.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he's one of my close friends on the planet now. It's like, it's the same thing. It's past the music, but it's just me going to their gigs.
Yeah. That's super cool.
That's cool. I don't know, man. I don't think kids now, well, man, I find myself saying that a lot, will ever have that experience, because I feel like even when I was a kid, these bands weren't so accessible. And so there was a lot of mystique that surrounded them. Absolutely. You could kind of fill in the blanks with your imagination about the kind of lives that they would lead. You know, they would record a music video in front of a green screen, and some part of you felt like maybe they really were playing those songs there on top of that mountain.
Yeah. Well, I'll go past that even before the video era. So when I'm in love with Aerosmith, they got a record called Live Bootleg. It's a gatefold. You fold it out, and there's probably 30 photographs of the band. So I just sit there while I'm listening to it and look at each one of these photographs a lot. So there's a picture of Joe Perry there wearing his diver's watch, reaching a can of Sprite to somebody. And so you wouldn't believe the thought I put into looking at that photograph, trying to figure out what kind of guy Joe Perry is.
Right.
I mean, what kind of dude is he? Right. How's it? You never heard their voices.
Right. No.
I don't know what you sound like when you talk.
Right.
And it was just amazing. And I thought, well, he wears a diver's watch. Do I need to get me a diver's watch if I want to be cool like Joe Perry? So then when you actually get to the point where you hear MTV happens and you get to hear them talking there, and it's like, oh, my God, they have voices. That's what your voice sounds like. You got a Boston accent. How'd that happen? You know, I should have known. But it's just, you're right, the mystique there, you feel it all in.
MTV was kind of a good happy medium because you still got that in doses, and it just, to me, it's like appetizer with But it feels like now, like, you know, your favorite band has 30 million Instagram followers, and you know what they had for breakfast, and it's just, it's cool, but it's not.
You don't
the
remember
same.
the Headbangers Ball, do you?
I do.
So, I mean, there would be people set up, man,
Yeah.
just to get to see that Iron Maiden video because you didn't see it any other time.
Yeah, right.
And that's gone, and it's too bad.
Yeah.
It's all instant now. You can do
I totally
whatever you
agree.
want.
I totally
Back
agree.
in my day,
Yeah. I can't believe I'm doing that as much as I am.
it gets worse. It's only going to get worse.
But I think I have legitimate grievances.
No, we do. You do and I do. We both do. And now I want to go back to when I was 18 and my uncles were saying all this stuff. They were right, too. They were absolutely right in saying this sucks and y'all shouldn't be doing it. So, yeah.
The music didn't suck. They were wrong about that.
No, you're right. But you know what? Here, let me really get, we don't need to go down this hole too far. The Singularity's coming.
Go as far as you want.
Dude, it's game
Sign
over.
me up. I love this.
It's game over then.
It is game over.
And I don't think anyone well, people see it, but we're not talking about it.
Did you read that Ray Kurzweil book?
I bought it and made it through half of it.
Yeah.
Enough to where I didn't need to read it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely got it. I mean, it was one thing when, you know, we figured out how to make something heavy like an airplane fly, and that's weird, but it's not going to shut everything down. And we create an internet where everyone's connected together. It's weird, but it's not going to shut it down. Singularity's going to shut it down.
It's almost like we're engineered as a species, like our purpose biologically is to improve technology.
Well, we about run our course.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. But exponentially, the way it's taken off. Go through some cards. I don't want to think about it.
All right. Funny gig stories.
You know, I can't give you one. I don't have any funny gig stories.
Horrible gig stories.
You know, when we just lump them together, just showing up and playing for people who didn't want to hear you and not getting paid. I remember playing one horrible gig in Huntington, West Virginia, and I was super poor then. I mean, we were playing for money just to survive on. And I remember the guy who ran the club sat at the door with his hands on the cash register, down like this. And I remember we're probably in the third set, and no one's coming in the club, and this guy's just going, "Oh God, this sucks, and you suck," and he let us go home early, and we didn't get paid much. And I'll never forget that. That's probably the worst gig ever.
What about the 15 Chinese guys that live at the Mexican restaurant in Logan, West Virginia? Or is it Mexican guys who live at the Chinese place? I can't remember.
It was Mexican guys at the Chinese place.
And you played there? Or what was I remember that story. What was the occasion?
Man,
for that?
hell, you know, I can't really put it all back together now. I don't recall it all. Was Moo Man in this story?
I don't know. I was in your freshman class at the time. And you had played in Logan over the weekend, and you spent half of our first period that day.
I think the point I was trying to make in class is how, and this was a point where everyone was really being very negative towards people from Mexico. You know, Mexicans were just a bad word. And I was just trying to drive, these guys have come to our country, and they're living in horrible conditions, crammed into a room, and what money they make, they're sending most of it back home, and they have a great work ethic. So I don't think we need to make fun of them for anything.
And they were happy to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. And you got other people who just want to try and draw a check.
And the juxtaposition of the Mexican guys working at the Chinese place.
Yeah, that was kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
But now here, I will tell you one that reminded me of Logan. I show up to a gig one time in Logan, and some way Moo Man had shown up at that same gig 3 hours in advance, and it convinced them that he was our road manager. And whatever tab we had at that point, he had already consumed all of it.
Of course he did.
And he was in top Moo Man form. But that also happened in Logan.
Tim's long gone, and he's still here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Mark, man.
I love both those guys. They were
Me
amazing.
too. I think about Tim every week.
Yeah, Tim was such a free spirit, and he didn't care which way he went. And Moo Man's one of the funniest people I've ever met. He's super. He could have a show.
So, the Bowie sticker on your guitar, all right?
Yeah.
So, growing up, we always talked about Zeppelin, Hendrix.
Yeah.
I never knew that you were a Bowie fan, right? But connecting dots a little bit, like the intro, there's Morton, there's David, there's Laid Back Country Picker, there's Chico, LB. I've actually seen you, I feel like, reinvent yourself a lot since I've known you.
Yeah.
There's the version of you that ran for Congress.
Yeah.
There's Chico for Constable.
Yeah, that was a dandy.
There's Night Train, there's Luna, there's The Teacher, and now there's Laid Back, and then there's your relationship with Tyler. Was any of that inspired by David Bowie? Is there some part of you?
No, not at all. But you're right. There's a pretty good parallel there because Bowie does that all the time.
Yeah.
You know? But for me, the draw with Bowie for me comes during the Mick Ronson period and the Spiders from Mars, because Ronson just such a great, his tone, Les Paul through a Marshall, playing notes that no one else would play, and I just fell in love with Ronson. And so the whole Ziggy Stardust period I really, really liked. Then Bowie gets pretty weird at points. I mean, he goes through that Berlin trilogy, and it's just a lot of kind of noisy stuff that I didn't much care for. But now that I step back away from it and I just see what an artist Bowie is and how he just sort of, he went where he felt he needed to go, really appreciate him for it. But, you know, the whole glam thing I love, you know, and Bowie had everyone going there, but Bowie's gay. And all this and that. You know, Bowie had them all, you know. Yeah. He was taking them all for a ride.
I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, I feel like that Coming Through You has hit Tyler. I feel like the video that he just made is Bowie coming through you.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but I'll take it. It's okay to be weird.
Could be wrong.
Yeah, it could be worse.
It could be worse. Could be driving a hearse.
Yeah.
So I was into politics whenever I was in your class.
I'm aware of that.
And I got a lot more into politics in college once I started studying economics as a degree program. And then,
I mean, you read
I did read Atlas.
You read Atlas Shrugged. You're bona fide.
But I feel like we've both moved the same way. It feels like now things are so polarized, nobody wants to even have a discussion. Nobody wants to listen to anything. And I even as ardent as I was about individualism, the Constitution, and all that, I've always been all about trying to find common ground with people where I could, even on politics. But I think I've just gotten to the point where now I still care about policy and I still care about economics. I still care what's happening to the country. But it feels like I can do more good and I can feel better about my life if I can just meet people where they are and connect with them on the things that we have in common as human beings. Because to me, that feels as, if not more important, in the era that we're living in with technology. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I will. First off, I'm to the point now where I'm almost apolitical. You know, in my job as a public school teacher, I don't need to take sides.
Right.
When I'm teaching kids, I need to say, this is how the system works, and let's look at both sides of everything. But I don't need to say, but this is what I believe. Because they're impressionable kids in my room. And so, well, that's what Mr. Prince thinks. That's what I'm going to think.
Yeah.
And so I try to avoid that at all costs. And with that being said, with social media now, you know everything about everybody. At least you know what they're putting on there. And before, when I met Joe in Hardee's, I didn't know if he's a Democrat or Republican. Didn't care.
No, it makes you see people differently.
Now you know and boy, there are people so passionate on either side. And you're right. That becomes the first thing. Well, if we can't agree about politics, well, we can't talk about anything. So I just steer clear of it. I don't even want to talk about it. I have friends online who are on the same side I like, and that's fine. I have friends who are on the other side, and I just don't want to bring it up.
I never felt like you saw things in a binary kind of way.
I don't.
You know, I know you liked FDR, and you felt like you benefited in your life from government assistance.
I absolutely do.
And so there's some sense of identity there for you. But I never ever felt like it was the horse race.
Well, too, I'm not saying, well, this is the team, so I'm in.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that.
No, and I never felt that way.
I would pick and choose from either side and just say, well, these are the things I believe in.
Yeah, you liked Goldwater.
I love Goldwater.
Me too, man.
I love him.
Yeah.
I wish he were alive now.
What'd you love about Goldwater?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, what I didn't like about him is you probably shouldn't use low-yield atomic weapons on the battlefield. That wasn't a good idea. But the idea that the government should stay out of your life for the most part. I mean, on social issues, things that now that have become just pillars of different platforms. Goldwater said government shouldn't be in this at all. That's something for you to do on your own. You decide that. You know, that's not government's role.
One of my favorite Chico stories, you probably don't even know that I know this. Wow. The Night Train album cover.
Which one?
Susie
Chambers.
So she had no idea what was about to happen.
You don't think?
Oh, I know she didn't. She told me the story.
Was she mad about it?
No.
Good.
Of course she wasn't. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
it was Sadie Hawkins' dance or whatever
I think
that picture was from?
Max Young took that photograph.
Really?
Yeah.
My neighbor.
Is that right?
And then, so you just asked to borrow the picture.
I think for whatever reason, Tim maybe had it at the
radio station. And you thought that?
Yeah, I thought that's it. That's the photo we need.
So had you already written Eighth Grade Bride before having that photo?
So. Yeah, I think so.
That didn't inspire the song?
No, there was a real Eighth Grade Bride. That's a true story.
Oh, yeah. It's probably several. I went to middle school with Seventh Grade Bride.
But there was one I knew in particular that I was substitute teaching, and I knew her. And she was getting married. So it's kind of a little bit of truth to the song.
Huh. We already talked about Led Zeppelin. How'd you get into the microbus thing?
Well, my dad, and also known as a great musician, he was a great mechanic. My dad could fix anything. If he would have gone to an engineering school, he could have designed whatever. He's a brilliant mechanical thinker. So he worked on cars all the time. He worked in a garage a lot. And I just had a love for working on small engines. I could fix lawnmowers, fix motorcycles. I could fix cars back when you could fix cars. And he always spoke highly of Volkswagens. He just said, it's a simple design and they're a cool car. So when I got old enough to get a car, I grabbed one. And he was right. The design is brilliant on them. And I just fell in love with them. And just love VWs ever since.
I remember seeing, the first time I saw it was at the Heritage Arts Festival, the first one. You had it parked out there, part of the car show.
Is that the car or the bus?
The bus.
Yeah.
And for a while, VW microbus was synonymous with Chico Prince.
Yeah, I had that bus, and we painted it up, put flowers on it.
Yeah.
Teresa put flowers.
Hippie van.
Yeah, we were farm use only on the side. And that bus, that's when I was playing with McNerlin, and he had booked a tour out to California and back. And
that was the summer after my freshman year.
Yeah.
You were about to go out.
He said, let's take the bus out west. And, we're all stupid. We don't know any better. Like, well, let's do it. So I tore the motor down, and I rebuilt the engine. And I said, okay, this thing's ready to go. I'm a shade tree mechanic. And all of us piled in it. We went to California and back. So I did something right, I guess.
Is the new one, you got it going?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. I'm driving it around quite a bit.
Cool.
Still don't trust it like I did the old white one, though.
You ever think you'd play the Ryman Auditorium?
No, are you kidding? No
Did
chance.
you aspire to?
No, not really. Because honestly, those are where good country music singers, guys that can sing, that's where they go. I don't have any business there. So it was that was surreal.
Tell me about how that felt.
I've told this. I don't know if I've told you the story or not. We go down early in the day to sound check, and when we first get to the Ryman, we go upstairs where you hang out, and there's just somebody just wearing a guitar out and over in a little practice room, just loud, and it's Sturgill. And Sturgill has got a Telecaster, and he's got a Deluxe, and he's just got it turned on 10. He's just jamming. And no one's going to walk in and say, Sturgill, turn that down. So it's super cool. And I love Sturgill, so I'm like, oh, God, that's Sturgill Simpson. This is awesome. So I know he's going to be on the show, too. So we go down, we get everything set up, and it's time to sound check. And that was the most nerve-wracking thing, because I'm in the Ryman. I see all the stained glass. I'm standing on that stage. This is unbelievable. I wish my mom and dad could see this, because this is unbelievable. So Sturgill's amp's right here, and Sturgill played, and I was like, Sturgill, you care if I just play through your amp? I couldn't believe I had the nerve to ask him. He's like, no, man, go ahead. So, all right, this is cool. So I plug my amp in, and I'm doing my little
black face?
No, it's just an old 70s silver face. And so Sturgill's standing right here. So not only I was standing on the Ryman, Sturgill's right behind me, and I'm playing my little song, and I'm going, I can't believe this even happened. It was just unbelievable. When it came showtime, kind of when it's showtime, layback turns into layback, and I go out and play. I don't know if it's a Ryman or if it's a hot dog festival. It doesn't matter. It's the same. But the sound check was really the mind blower. And Sturgill standing behind me and me playing through his amp.
No kidding.
That was cool.
I felt that way whenever I met Miles. I was sitting on Tyler's bus, and he came and sat down next to me. He's like, hey, man, I'm Miles. I know, Miles. I'm that.
He's the nicest guy.
He's great, dude.
Man.
Awesome.
When I opened for Tyler in Nashville, that's when he had Miles and Rod both playing double drums.
They were that night.
Yeah, so he got to play. Miles come out and played some of my set. I was like, man, that's Miles Miller. We're playing layback songs, and that's Miles Miller right there. So it was a thrill.
So I saw the name Miles Miller on the bill, like kicking it.
Yep.
So is he doing a solo thing?
Yep.
Can somebody hear that somewhere?
I don't know, and I get a feeling it's just going to be high lonesome bluegrass, and that's just me guessing. But now, when you're hanging out with Miles, he doesn't want to talk about modern stuff. He wants to talk about Keith Whitley and the old school bluegrass. I've been in the room with him and Jesse Wells together, and boy, there's two bluegrass minds.
Yeah.
And that high harmony stuff, Miles can kill that.
Yeah.
And so I guess he's got him some sort of little bluegrass thing together. That's just what I'm guessing. I don't know that to be fact.
That's cool.
Oh, it's going to be cool.
Speaking of kicking it, man, two of the most fun weekends of my life have been down there.
Yeah.
At the places it's like that Skynyrd record's almost holy.
It is. Byron Roberts.
I sit out and I mean, even now I listen to music that I've heard there and I transport it back there. During the summer, I'm like, man, I wish I was down there. I met Byron at Al's Bar.
Yeah.
2014.
That's probably right.
15. And Tyler's like, hey man, I want you to meet my buddy Byron. And I loved that dude as soon as I met him. And then we went to Tally Ho and just kind of visited with him.
I was supposed to come that night.
You were supposed to come. You and Teresa left.
Yeah.
You went to Waffle House in Winchester.
Yeah, you're right.
Why do I remember that?
I don't know, but that was a bad move. Because I hadn't met Byron yet. That was going to be my first time to meet him.
That was a great night, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, if I'd known what I know now, I'd have walked barefoot. Because you meet Byron, and I'm telling you, man, I clicked with him, and he's the most genuine human being on the planet.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
And his festival he has is just a direct reflection of him.
He's a minister, man.
Yeah, he is.
He's a mission from God.
Yeah, he's delivered.
He is. Anyway, I think that's the epicenter of this whole thing. Down there. That's how everybody gets connected with each other, going down there.
Yeah, it's a weekend of fellowship.
Yeah.
Of musicians and fans. And artists and photographers and people who walk on fire and people who make wine. They're all there. People who make things out of arrowheads.
So the Ryman weekend hung out with Kid Rock.
Yeah.
And Jack White.
Yeah, Jack White was at those shows because Tyler's got 2 nights at the Ryman. He's opening for, what's her name?
Margot Price.
Margot. And I guess Margot was on Jack's label. So Jack wants to come down and watch the show. And so the day we're going down there, Kid Rock just took a walk into Tyler and said, come on out the house and I'll feed you all. So Tyler's like, you want to go out there? Yeah, I think I do. So when we pull up to his double wide, and he really has a double wide.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's standing out front, and he personally comes and meets and greets each one of us, and he's the most genuine, nice guy. And he takes us into his house. He feeds us all this great food, and we just sit and talk, and he's just a very nice guy. And he's in love with Tyler. He knew all of Tyler's songs. He wanted Tyler to sing. He was a very big fan.
And I think that just goes to show you that the caricatures that get created of people within the zeitgeist that we have now is not fair at all.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
In either direction.
You know, I see it, and I always thought it was a funny meme. What's the Christmas meme with Kid Rock?
Oh, yeah. Make sure to leave Bud Light out for Kid Rock or something.
Yeah, you know, and he's become like a butt of a joke almost, but he's just a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Really, a genuine guy who's trying to help other artists out, and that's super cool. So we hung out with him, and Tyler's gone back since several times, so they're really good friends. And then, like I said, there was Jack White, and you got to know that Teresa is a major Jack White fan. She loves Jack White almost as much as Tom Petty.
Well, I remember you talking about how much you all were into the White Stripes when that record came out.
We were.
Teresa made Jack White shake her hand.
Yeah, Teresa tracks him down. He's in the Ryman trying to be off to himself, listening to Margot soundcheck, and Teresa goes right up to him, sticks her little hand out. It's like, I forget what she said to him, but she just had to meet him and shake his hand.
And he loved her, right? How can you not love Teresa?
No, I think Jack White was a little taken. He's not like everybody else.
Really?
He wasn't mean to her, but I think Teresa said she really felt bad that she forced him to shake her hand, but she did what she had to do.
I'm going to put these on the table.
All right.
We've already talked about these. And if anything grabs you.
Wow, you hate that. Randy. Here, I got a word to say about Randy. She's probably just one of the coolest human beings on earth. And she's super funny. She's a brilliant teacher. She really gets my sense of humor. And when we get together, there are just things like we almost just have to say little code phrases, and we know what they are, and we both just die laughing or whatever. I've never felt any closer to anybody than I do with Randy. She's just an amazing person. Can't imagine raising a boy, because now she has 2 boys, and I watch her and what you have to do to raise a boy, and I'm like, my gosh, that's hard, because she was never difficult like that. I'm just so proud of her, and she just probably the greatest thing I ever achieved was to have Randy. She's just amazing.
Rick, I've heard a lot of Rick Fraser sermons at this point.
Yeah.
One of his go-tos, other than hating raisins, is he said, I had 2 boys and 1 good kid.
Yeah.
And actually, that wasn't fair. That was too country. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah. Well, and it's not that her boys are uber mean. They're just boys.
They're just boys.
And boys don't act like girls do. And it was just so easy to raise her.
How does it feel to you to be a papa?
Oh, it's great. And there's no way you can say this is what it's going to be like. You can't prepare anyone for it. But it's really super cool. And I'll tell you something that really got weird. Is so Randy has Arnie, her first son. And we're all in tune with Arnie, and that's great. And so all of a sudden she's going to have another child. And I'm really like, how can I like another one? Because I only raised one child, and she was the focus of everything. So now I got Arnie, and he's the focus. I thought, I don't know how this new kid's going to fit in. I don't know where's its place. But as soon as you see, and Ollie was born, it's just a whole different thing. And there's plenty for her Ollie too. And
I love that video she put up the other day.
In the bathtub?
It was hilarious.
Yeah, and those two kids, I mean, their personalities are so distinct, and I just love them both to death. It's the greatest thing.
Do you feel like as laid back as LMJ, as a teacher, you get enough time with him?
Oh, no, because right now, when I left to come down here, Teresa and I were struggling with, well, are we going to go see him tonight? Because we want to see him all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't see him for maybe a week at a time because we're off playing or whatever. And they're at the age where they change so much in a week.
Different kid next time.
Yeah, and Arnie's language acquisition is just amazing. And Ollie, they really change a lot within a week. But it's super cool.
Well, I'm honored you'd come down here and do this with me.
Oh, man, I'm glad to do it. I mean, who wouldn't want to sit and come talk about themselves for 3 hours and eat bologna?
Eric C. Conn, what you got?
Okay, Eric C. Conn. He was my economics teacher at Morehead State University. Not many of us can say that, but when I was at Morehead, he had been hired on. The way I understood it, he had been in Iraq. I guess maybe he was a soldier. I'm guessing. I don't know. He said he'd just come back from Iraq, and he got hired at Morehead to teach economics. So, he's got a sense of humor. He's a smart guy. He's really quick. And I remember walking to class with him a lot, and he was really engaging, and I really enjoyed having Eric. I think I learned a lot about economics. And so as I graduate, and Eric moves back to Prestonsburg and becomes Mr. SSI, Mr. Social Security, and you see him build this empire, and the whole time I'm going, well, that guy was my econ teacher. That's pretty interesting. Then the commercials start to happen, and it gets weird. And he brought the Kentucky Headhunters to town. He gave them a pretty good little payday to come down there and play in Pikeville, and not a lot of people came, and they didn't advertise or nothing. And he just wanted to have the Headhunters play. And he got up on stage with them, whatever. But then things got weird, man. And I guess you all know the story now.
Do you know the story about my cousin Brandon and Eric C. Conn?
No.
So Brandon's one of the most talented guitar players on earth. That's not a joke. He's a jazz guy. He's got this mind that's just makes me sad when I think about it. Not really. Love you, Brandon. But when he was in high school, he had I don't know if it was a humanities class or what it was, but he had to write a song. So he recorded a Eric C. Conn rap song for his class for an assignment. Word gets to Eric C. Conn about it, and he loves it. And he pays Brandon a bunch of money and starts using that rap song Brandon wrote for class in his commercials.
That's awesome.
So there's a Kentucky for Kentucky long think piece article about Brandon's relationship with Eric C. Conn and the rap song, and you got to check that out.
Yeah, I need to find it and read it. You mentioned Kentucky for Kentucky. Early on, they did an article on me. Yeah. And Coleman Smith wrote it, and he's super funny, man. He really has a
good writer too.
He has a nice vision, and I don't see Coleman much, but I got to credit him for helping break the layback mess wide open because he saw something in it early on.
That and Matt Jones.
Well, and Ritt Mortimer. Ritt Mortimer runs a TV station in Syersville. So as soon as McGoffin County Cadillac video hit the air, I get this call from a guy saying, hey, I'm Ritt Mortimer in Syersville.
Oh, you told me you were coming here to play a gig, and you told me you were going to be stopping and doing that interview.
Yeah, and it was, that really freaked me out because I wasn't ready for any of this. I thought, why does somebody want to do an interview with me? And Ritt was one of the first guys. And you're right, Matt Jones from KSR. He loves Tyler, and he found out about me through Tyler, and he would mention me, and I've called in a couple of times and spoken to him, and man, that guy's got a lot of reach. And anytime I'd show up on KSR, I would be selling shirts to people on the other end of the stage.
Dude, when he brings you up, he talks for a long time about you. I mean, he does segments on you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I need to listen to it.
You do need to listen to it. And
what channel is that on?
It's all I know is it's on 630 in Lexington.
I guess he's going to run for something, maybe, right?
He's been threatening to run for something a long time. He's thinking about running against McConnell.
He's a pretty smart guy.
He is a pretty smart guy, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with his show and his media empire because they're going to try to vet him hard, and I'm afraid people won't see him the same way.
Yeah, well, that's.
I like his radio show, and I don't want to think about him as a political animal myself. But, yeah. Because I remember he interviewed you after that Burl gig.
Yeah.
He was there. Did you even know who he was whenever you did the interview?
Now I got to tell you, they first pointed out I didn't know.
Yeah,
because I love the Cincinnati Bengals and the Reds, and I don't listen to sports radio. I don't need to hear people keep talking about the game. The Bengals lost by 30. I don't need to listen to 3 hours of them talking about why the Bengals lost for 30. So I'm not a sports radio guy. But man, yeah, he seemed like a cool, energetic guy, and then I found out who he is. I go, well, this cat's.
I remember you said Matt Jones interviewed me. I'm like, you know who that is? He says he got a sports show. I'm like, yeah, it's on every county in Kentucky.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know, but I know now. And you're my favorite. I don't even know who Bill Cunningham is anymore.
He's a great American. I know that. All right, the Crown Vic thing. How'd you get into that?
All right, so back to Dad. Dad is a mechanic and he's a Ford guy. My dad likes Fords. So that means I like Fords. And I guess I'd always loved Galaxies and Fairlanes, and they sort of morphed into Crown Vics. But then you find out from talking to my police officer friends that these cars get really good gas mileage. And so that's all I needed to know. So wait a minute, you can give me a car that's going to go 140 miles an hour. It gets good gas mileage, and it's big enough to haul the whole band in. What's not to love? And so then I get to buy them on eBay, which is another passion I had. So I would buy these cars in El Paso, Texas, and fly down in an airplane and get one of them and drive it back home. So it became a sport almost, getting Crown Vics. So I love them. They're great automobiles.
In between the LTD and the Saabs?
Yeah, you're right. See, and the LTD to me is really just a big Galaxy.
Yeah.
And so I get that, and that's a beautiful car. But 10 miles a gallon wasn't really getting it. I couldn't
Especially
afford it.
then, because that was peak Bush administration gas prices.
Yeah, it was like $4 a gallon.
Yeah, it was like $80 to fill it up, I'm sure.
So, and yeah, the Saab seemed to make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the Saab. But yeah, I love Crown Victorias. I'll always drive them.
Tell me about this song.
This is my great.
Put Me Away is what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah, let's understand that whenever we're all living out Twin Branch, my grandma lived with us in the house. Actually, it was her house. My dad just stayed there and brought his family in, or raised a family there. So when Mom and Dad go away to Fort Gay to run the bar in 68, I'm spending most of my time with Grandma there in Twin Branch. Well, her brothers all lived within a mile. Not all of her brothers, but there was an Uncle Lee and an Uncle Lindsay who lived close by. And I just spent tons of time with them. They pretty much raised me for a period of time. And this song is really more about Uncle Lindsay, who was just honest to a fault. And he just always told me, if you owe anybody a penny, you got to pay him. And if you told him you're going to pay him on Tuesday, you pay him on Tuesday. And he was in World War II. He could sign his name, but he was pretty much functionally illiterate. But just the most honest, hardworking guy I'd ever met. And this song is just really a tribute to him. Because one of his key things was, I don't want to be a burden on anybody while I'm alive or after I'm dead. So, I want enough money to put me away. That's what the old people said for burial insurance. So it's just a tribute to him and my uncles and grandma. And it's hard for me to sing sometimes.
I love that song, man.
Well, thank you.
I really love that song.
It means a lot to me, that song does.
Did you ever think they'd write about you in the Rolling Stone?
No, see, that's just another thing. It's just, and all these weird things you ask me about, and I just got to tell you, it's Tyler Childers. If Tyler Childers didn't run me up the flagpole, this stuff I wouldn't be in Rolling Stone. He's just way too good to me. Don't say yeah, you would, because I wouldn't. Tyler makes all this happen.
That's not what I was going to say.
Good.
What I was going to say is he could have run somebody else up the flagpole, and it wouldn't have taken on the way it did.
I'm glad he did me.
Me too.
I don't know why he did, but I'm glad.
Not hard to figure out, I don't think.
But, people like John R. Miller, he loves John R., and he'll promote John R. at any turn he can get, and rightfully so, because John R. is super talented.
Well, when they played in Atlanta, I think probably the whole tour they were doing this. He was playing bass for Billy Matheny, and Tyler always made John go out for the encore, and John had to play his songs.
Yeah.
He's one of the best songwriters, I think.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Around now. I mean, anywhere.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Unbelievable.
But Tyler just does that. I mean, he pushes people from back home all the time. It's amazing. He doesn't have to do that.
Well, I remember when his record came out, they were interviewing him, and they asked him, Tyler, where does this sound come from? Who are your influences? And this is on some news channel, Alphabet Network news channel. I don't remember what it was, but I remember watching the interview, and I kind of expected him to say Bob Dylan. and Drive-By Truckers. But he said Night Train, Luna and the Mountain Jets, and he always does that. And I love that kid, man.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, because I think you see a lot of country music highway people have quote unquote made it, even though that doesn't mean what it used to.
Yeah.
But I've never seen anybody try to take everybody with him like Tyler does.
He absolutely does. He needs a big buzz because he's taking a lot of folks.
That's right. So there's a short blurb you do in your act on this dude.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else above and beyond that?
You know, Jim Frank, and one thing about the whole Jim Frank bit is, I always make it a point to talk more and longer than what the song is. I wanted a song under 60 seconds, so I talk about it for 3 minutes and play a 60-second song. But Jim Frank was a phenomenal guy, and everything I say about him is true. He just worked in town. He did metal work and stuff, welding, whatever. Just the sweetest guy, just a sweetheart. And then I really found out that he was a trained musician, and he didn't really have to do this. He could have probably made a good living doing that.
So for people who have never seen you, this is a dude who went to Juilliard School of Music.
Yeah.
And a phenomenal player, and worked on cars in Fallsburg, Kentucky.
Well, actually, he was in town. His garage was right in the middle of town.
Is that the Comptons?
Yeah, that's Jim Frank's.
Huh.
So he would come to some Night Train shows every now and then, and I was like, what are you doing? And after I found out he was a musician, and he appreciated what we did, even though I'm sure it wasn't his cup of tea, he was very supportive. And just what a sweet guy. Just a really nice man.
I vaguely, very, very vaguely remember hearing that name.
My dad took
him, but
Dad would get stuff fixed all the time, and I would go down there, and he always had a stuffed wildcat that was up in his window, and it was just the thrill of my life to see that stuffed wildcat at Jim Frank's. And I'd like to know what happened to it.
How'd you get hooked up with Jessica White?
Well, I guess it's during Night Train days, and John Gostovich was in Night Train, and John Gostovich was super smart, and he was always into the underground pop culture stuff, and he would turn us on to it. And some way he had got word there's this character named Jessica over in West Virginia. We got our hands on a VHS copy of the first Jessica documentary.
Wonderful Whites of West Virginia.
Oh, no. This is called Dancing Outlaw.
You gave me that tape.
Yeah, so it's just Dancing Outlaw. And West Virginia Public TV put it out. They had a little series called Different Drummer where they highlight people who aren't like everyone else.
Uh-huh.
And so there's this thing on Jessica. So we watched it, and just like everybody else, we learned every line and every quote. But we realized, we're about 100 miles from Jessica's house. Let's just go. So we load up the van, and we track him down. And, I mean, this is pre-GPS stuff. We had to go up some hollers and stuff, but we track him down. And we go to his house, like, hey, man, we're in a band, and we dig you, and let's hang out. And we stayed at his house and drank a bunch of coffee and talked. And we said, hey, we're getting ready to play some shows. You're going to play at the Logan Coal Miners Rally, Labor Day Rally. And I know the date. It was 1997 because I have it on a VHS tape. We said, we'll be your backup band, and you perform, and we'll play behind you. And we talked him into it. So we went to Racine, West Virginia. I said, Logan, it's Racine. And we played, and Jessica sang and danced and stuff. And then we had some shows at the Empty Glass in Charleston. And Jessica came and performed with us there. So we got to know him pretty well, his whole family.
So did you all get Jesco Fest going?
No, we didn't do Jesco Fest. Someone else started it, but we got invited to it. And they did that in Hinton, West Virginia, for whatever reason. But, it's hard to handle Jesco. He gets out there.
I reckon.
But we got to know the whole family, and really, they're pretty sweet people. They've just lived hard. And I guess he's down in Tennessee now, still kicking.
Anytime somebody brings him up, I always think of that picture you have on your desk.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
Him and the Elvis dude.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
And so the fun fact about Jesco is the Beck video.
Yeah.
Right, Loser?
Yeah, he's dancing on a table, a picnic table, for a few minutes in the Beck video. And so, then they wanted him on Roseanne. You know the Roseanne story.
No.
So they wanted him to have Roseanne and play like the crazy uncle who's going to come in. So they fly Jesco out to Hollywood. And, he's got some swastikas and stuff tattooed on his fingers. Yeah. And Roseanne's like, well, you can't be on my show with those swastikas. So they send him off to the tattoo parlor, and they turn those into roses or whatever and get him all covered up. But I guess he was on the same episode with Dweezil Zappa. What? Yeah, Dweezil's on that same episode. But I guess Jesco was so unmanageable that he couldn't get through the lines or couldn't say a part. Wow. So the only party, have you seen the episode?
No.
The only thing he does at the end of the show, they say, well, this is our crazy Uncle Jesse or whatever. And Dweezil plays guitar and Jesco tap dances for the last 2 minutes of the show. And that's it, because they couldn't keep him in line long enough to be in the episode.
Roseanne had, 8 seasons?
Yeah.
I need to track that down. I want to see that.
Yeah,
it was on Netflix, but she tweeted some stuff and that disappeared.
Yeah. You need to find it, but it was pretty amazing.
Well, you have a pizza and a beer named after your likeness. What do you think about that?
Well, I just got to tell you, the pizza is outstanding.
It's really good pizza.
So if you go to Steam Engine Pizza in Irvin, they can make you a laid-back country pizza, and it's great. And Country Boy Brewing makes a laid-back lager, which I think they're out of right now. But, as far as beers goes, it's a pretty tasty brew. It's got a coffee taste to it because I helped put the flavor together. I like coffee.
Just do a paragraph. New Orleans.
Okay, we can't mention New Orleans without Scott Osborne.
Right.
So Scott Osborne, who is my colleague and maybe the smartest human being I know, and I'm just enamored by him constantly, and you had him in class.
Yeah, I love that guy.
I do too.
I love Brant too.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
So whenever Katrina hits, was it within a year we went? He goes to the Board of Education and said, I'd like to take a bunch of students down to do some relief work at Katrina. You win. We took how many people? 30 people?
You know what Tyler said to me about that trip?
No.
He said, man, if I'd have known y'all were going to New Orleans, I wouldn't have transferred to Paintsville. He's still mad about it.
Well, he blew it. But we go to New Orleans. We do a bunch of relief work, especially for Mr. Osborne's family, and then other people we didn't know. And I think we all learned a whole lot down there. It was nice to be exposed to that culture, and it also just helped some people out who were in a tight spot.
I will never forget. I don't remember where we were eating, but we all had the relief shirts on. There's a big group of us.
Yeah.
And we were waiting for our check to come, and it never came.
Yeah.
And we said, what's the deal? And he said, that guy at the table that just left paid for everybody's dinner, which is, it was a lot of kids.
Yeah, he found out what we were doing.
And we chased him up the street.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be a couple $100.
Oh, yeah,
but
at least.
That was
at
his,
least. There's a lot of muffaladas. They were good.
Yeah, but that was his thank you to us for helping out.
Yeah, I remember seeing signs driving up and down the streets. No thanks, U.S. government. Thank you, Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, on the way down, we went through fields of FEMA trailers.
Just parked.
Sitting off to the side,
sitting there.
not helping anybody. And then you get on down into the city, and that's where the people
And then
live.
we had the FEMA trailer at the really nice house in the suburb that was nicer than this one where it was hot. We went and sat in the FEMA trailer.
Yeah, you're right.
I kind of resented working on that house, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, but, you just saw where the bureaucracy dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
And you know what? That changed FEMA drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they got it straightened out.
Are they still parked in that field in Mississippi, you think?
That'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it?
There was what was the issue? Lead paint or something in them?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a house, but it's better to be homeless than to have a trailer with lead paint, which is what everybody lived in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, look at me. I'm fine. I'm a lead paint baby. Ireland, what can you say about that?
More Scott Osborne.
Yeah, Mr. Osborne, who likes to travel, puts together a trip for Lawrence County students to go to Ireland, and I went on as a second lieutenant, and away we went. How many of us went? 14, 15?
Something like that.
What's your takeaway from Ireland?
Well, first of all, now that I'm 30 plus years old, I cannot imagine being as bold as a teacher to say, let's take 20 of you to New Orleans. We're going to go to the French Quarter, and all right, everybody, be back by 10 o'clock.
Yep. That's Scott Osborne. I mean, Scott's fearless.
Same thing with Ireland, but we all made it back in one piece. No, it's my takeaway from Ireland is it's easy for me to see why Eastern Kentucky, why the Irish settled where they did.
Yeah. Because
it feels a lot like here, over there. It was comfortable instantly over there, I felt like. And it's interesting to be in the old world where they have doorknobs older than our country.
Yeah, it is.
Like I was a C.S. Lewis fan in high school, and me and Oz snuck out one day and went over to Queens where he went to school. That was weird. Seeing the Book of Kells.
Yeah, that was
the harp at the library in Trinity College. All that stuff. Oscar Wilde. All just mind-blowing stuff. I'm really, really, really grateful to both of you guys that we were all able to do that.
It was amazing. I think it changed all of our lives.
Yeah.
Plus the Ulster fry probably took about 2 months off my life.
My favorite meal I've ever eaten in my entire life.
Mine too.
Really?
Oh my God. I've never had anything like that. Ballsburg?
People in Portland were going to listen to the show because they like Tyler Childers. What can you tell them about where you're from?
Okay. I live in Fallsburg now, and I've probably been in Fallsburg, and I'm horrible at time, 30-some years, but it's just maybe 6-7 miles away from where I was born at Twin Branch, but I had to move because they put a lake there. Fallsburg is just a quiet little community. Everyone knows everybody. Everybody's really good to each other. It's just a wonderful place to live. I am proud to say I'm from Fallsburg. We got a little school there where my wife and daughter both teach, and we're a nice, tight-knit little community.
And I feel like Lawrence County is the center of the universe.
It is.
I mean, we were talking about the men's choir, and you got Tyler and Adam, but I almost feel weird naming specific names of people that are doing big things that came out of Lawrence County because you leave so many people out. It's just impossible. I mean, there's population 2,000 in the census 2000, and I mean, the talent there is just some of the best people and some of the worst people in the world are from Louisa, Kentucky.
And I'll tell you what I see as a teacher. I see my kids who have gone off in the world, and you got the Jenna Kellys of the world and the Tylers and all these people who are doing high-profile things, and they're famous. But I also got kids who joined the military. I got kids who went to work for the railroad. I got a kid who's working for the newspaper in Hazard, Kentucky. They're success stories, too. Just because they're not famous,
it's true.
They're not being successful. I have so many former students who are just killing it right now in whatever area it was they chose to go into. And I'm just so proud of our school and the kids that we turn out. Proud of you.
Oh,
you can sell houses to people that you don't even know. It's amazing.
Guitar collection. What was the one that got away?
Boy, there's a couple. There was a J50 in, what's that town in Virginia? A little town in Virginia where it doesn't matter. There's one that I played actually in a music store that just killed. As good a J50, as good a Gibson acoustic as I've ever had in my hand. I knew I should have bought it when I walked out the door. I walked out the door and didn't do it. I went back 2 weeks later and it was gone.
Do you have any that you had that you traded that you wish you didn't?
My first good Telly was a 74 Telly. It was nothing special, but it also wasn't a bad 70s Telly. And that's back before I kept every guitar. I keep them all now. I don't get rid of anything. But I got rid of it to get something else.
I'm getting to be about like that.
Yeah, there's no need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You just wish you had them back.
Yeah.
Unless you're starving to death, don't get rid of them.
Is there such thing as Appalachian pizza?
I don't know what that means.
To me, Doc's and Giovanni's are specific to where we're from. I don't feel like everybody would understand that.
I guess you're right, and especially if you've had New York pizza or Chicago pizza, this is not that ballpark at all, is it?
No.
But this is what I know.
It's good in a different way.
This is what I know. Now, my friend Mike Skaggs makes treat meat calzone. Is that in the same ballpark?
I don't know what you're talking
That's
about.
his specialty. He makes calzone with treat meat.
What's treat meat?
You never had treat?
You know what Spam is?
Vienna's,
Spam, all that? Yeah.
Spam is like top shelf.
No, I got you. Treats.
Treats
Got it.
Yeah, the step under.
I would eat that.
Oh, yeah, you'd like it.
Do you remember Jimmy Boggs and Papa's?
I remember Papa's.
Wasn't that Jimmy Boggs' restaurant?
I don't know. I don't know who ran it.
That's probably my favorite pizza ever. But it may just be a nostalgia thing at this point.
No, it was good pizza. I remember. But I got to say, these two run neck and neck. Doc's and Giovanni's.
I love Giovanni's, but I'll take Doc's 9
soft.
out of 10 times.
Well, I like to save Doc's for special occasions.
Same.
I don't want to eat at Doc's all the time because it's so good.
Same.
So Giovanni's is my workhorse pizza. When I want to get fancy, I'll go to Doc's. That card said Byron Roberts.
It did.
I love Byron Roberts.
Me too. Man. That's about it.
We covered it all, didn't we?
Let me press the button because I got an idea.